Good evening. I declare the Ordinary Council meeting open at 18:01 this evening. Councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen, we wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we are meeting on, the Wadjuk people. We would like to pay respect to the elders of the Noongar Nation, past and present, who have walked and cared for the land, and we acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and contributions made to the life of this city and this region, and I invite you to bow your head in prayer. Lord, we ask for your blessing upon our city, our community and our council. Guide us in our decision-making to act fairly, without fear or favour, and with compassion, integrity and honesty. May we show true leadership, be inclusive of all, and guide the city of Wanneroo to a prosperous future that all may share. We ask this in your name. Please note that the audio-visual proceedings of tonight's meeting will be recorded with the exception of matters discussed behind closed doors. The broadcast of the proceedings of Council can be accessed live and on demand through the City of Wanneroo Council meeting tube. Attendances are as per the record, and we have a leave of absence from Councillor Berry. Item 3, announcements. The following public questions time, the announcement for that is the following general rules apply to public question time and statement time. Public questions and statements should only relate to the business of the local government and should not be a personal statement or opinion. Only questions relating to matters affecting the local government will be considered at a council meeting, and only questions that relate to the purpose of the meeting will be considered at a special council meeting. Questions may be taken on notice and responded to after the meeting. Questions may not be directed at specific council members or a city employee. Questions are not to be framed in such a way as to reflect adversely on a particular council member or a city employee. First priority will be given to persons who are asking questions relating to items on the current council meeting agenda, and second priority will be given to public statements. Only public statements regarding items on the council agenda under consideration will be heard. Each person seeking to ask questions or make a statement may address the council for a maximum of 3 minutes each. We have had 4 questions related to PQ01 1122 for Mr Paul Walker in Butler, and we have responded to that in writing. PQ02 1122, Mr M Guerrero from Dash, that has been responded to in writing. PQ03 1122, Mrs F Monk, Dash, that has been responded to in writing. And PQ04 1122, Mr D Lang Lash, and that's been responded to in writing. Do we have any public questions from the chamber this evening? I'm talking about the residents, not the elected members. Thank you, Councillor Miles. Okay, if there are no, Councillor Baker, if there are no further issues, I will move on to the confirmation of minutes. Can I have a mover for the minutes of Ordinary Council meeting held on the 11th of October 2022? Thank you, Councillor Treby, seconded by Councillor Civic. We'll go to a vote on this. And that was passed unanimously. Thank you. Announcements by the Mayor without discussion. Well, we have had a feast of awards over the last few weeks. And the first award I'd like to announce is the Wanneroo Aquamotion National Award winners. And Daniel Webb and Lee Duffy are here to come and pick it up. The city's Wanneroo Aquamotion recently won the National Swim Safer Award of Excellence at the 2022 Swim Coaches and Teachers Australia Awards, presented by Swim Australia. The award was presented by Swim Australia, who is the national authority on teaching swimming and water safety and the peak industry body for over 600 swim schools across Australia. This prestigious award highlights the importance of swim safety and recognises the outstanding work being done in the water safety arena. Aquamotion was awarded for providing high-quality swimming lessons with a focus on improving swim safety throughout the local community. Congratulations to the entire Aquamotion team for this outstanding achievement. Come on down, guys. Oh, and Debbie's going to come and join us too. Here we go. The second award of the evening is the 2022 Resilient Australia Local Government Award. The City of Wanneroo is a highly commended recipient in the 2022 Resilient Australia Local Government Award. This outstanding achievement has been awarded for the Prepare Together project that aims to provide long-term resilience of the City of Wanneroo's community in natural hazards. Congratulations. Debbie and Kirsten, come on down. And yes, there's another award to be announced this evening at our meeting, and it's Talking My Language Award. I'm pleased to share the City of Wanneroo recently took out 2 prestigious wins for Waste Sorted Talking My Language Toolkit, which was developed to overcome the difficulties experienced by culturally and lingually diverse communities in understanding waste services information due to language and literacy barriers. The toolkit was crowned Community Engagement Success of the Year Awards at Inside Waste 2020 Waste Innovation and Recycling Awards, and we received the Excellence in Service Delivery Award at the 2022 Local Government Professionals WA Honour Awards. These awards recognise the hard work of the waste education team they have put into delivering this innovative program and working alongside multicultural community leaders to reduce waste. More than 40% of the city's population were born overseas, and 20% of the residents speak a language other than English at home. So it is extremely important that we are able to make waste information accessible to these residents. A huge thanks and congratulations to all the Waste Services team members who brought this fantastic initiative to life, but in particular Emma Sine, who was the project lead. Well done to everyone involved, and I think Amani is here tonight to collect it as well. And this is the last award of the evening, but I'm sure it's not the last award the city's going to win. We've got many more we're putting in for. This is the Planning and Sustainability Team Award. I'm delighted to share that the City of Wanneroo has won a prestigious award from the Planning Institute of Australia. The city's Planning and Sustainability team took out the award for Local Government Team, Band 1 or larger local government areas at the 2022 WA Awards for Planning Excellence. The team was recognised for delivering strategic planning guidance and improvements in planning processes for local businesses and the wider community, as well as its commitment to ongoing staff development, all the while navigating challenges presented by COVID-19. The team has implemented improvements to the city's local planning framework that will benefit residents and local industry for years to come, while maintaining an unwavering dedication to customer support and ensuring high-quality planning outcomes for our community. As state award winners, the team will now progress to the national awards, the winners of which will be announced at the 2023 Planning Congress. Congratulations, and Mark Dixon, would you like to come on down? My chair's on wheels. Okay, item 6 of the agenda is questions from council members. Do I have any questions from council members? Councillor Herridge.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a good news story that I'm hoping I can get through without any tears, so I'll just give you that disclaimer to start with. Okay, earlier this year I contacted our parts department, and Jeremy Walker has been an awesome help with a small project to celebrate an amazing Lansdalean. A much loved and adored long-time resident, George Magistro, affectionately known to many as G, gained his angel wings earlier this year. Sorry, I knew I'd do it. George was someone you could always rely on and was always there to lend a hand. He was and is who we call Mr. Lansdale. George owned a local hardware shop at the Forum and was one of the first to purchase a block of land that would become the family home years later opposite Broadview Park, which many of us all know. We've got another item on the agenda for that one tonight. To celebrate a life well lived and taken too soon, the idea of a plaque on his seat at Broadview Park came from a number of locals, and it's been my absolute privilege to work on this with Jeremy and received word today that it was installed yesterday. Forever watching over his favourite spot, friends, family and the locals are now also able to do so the same and remembering him living on. Thanks.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Councillor Herridge. Are there any other questions? Yes, Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, just a question by clarification. As at 5:45pm this evening, the City's website advised members of the public that the live streaming of this meeting would commence at the next ordinary council meeting at, quote, 6pm on Friday, 11 November. I'm not sure if that has been corrected. I did leave a message for the CEO on the way in, but I did receive a couple of mobile phone calls on the way in and asking as to whether this meeting was being conducted tonight or this Friday as per the City's website. Thank you.
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. I might just ask Mr. Madferson just to comment. We are definitely live streaming this evening, but we would hope that we've advised the public correctly.
It's correct, yes, through yourself. The live stream is running currently. We are up and broadcasting, and there are people watching. So it's at least got through to some that the time is now. I will check though the website and make sure that the information that's displayed there is correct.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Yes, Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor Aitken. I have 4 councillor questions tonight. My first question is to Mayor Aitken. Why did the Mayor exclude Councillor Civic and myself from a meeting with local sporting clubs at the Wanneroo Showgrounds, which was strategic in nature and related to current and future asset utilisation and considered council business? This has caused disadvantages for Councillor Civic and myself.
According to the standing orders. So that question is not according to council business. According to the standing orders, you are not able to ask that question.
My second question, can the CEO please circulate to council the notes taken by City staff and the Mayor during that meeting and also provide a list of attendees at that meeting?
That's not about council business, and it's not regarded as council business. You can request that in email to the CEO.
I haven't received a response from you on that.
That is incorrect. You have received a response on it.
5 minutes before a council meeting?
Yes,
Okay.
Councillor Wright, you have received a response, and that question is out of order, and I ask that you decease now because this is bad behaviour. If your next question is out of order and not part of council business, you will not be able to ask any more questions according to the standing order.
It is about
On a point of
council
order,
business.
please, Madam Mayor. If I may, a point of order, please.
Yes, Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through the Chair. Standing Orders 4.7 states as follows. It's headed with the words members not to interrupt. It says a member must not, paragraph B, interrupt another member who is speaking other than to, number 1, raise a point of order, which means to raise a point of order and state what the point of order is. And number 2, call attention to the absence of a quorum. Number 3, make a personal explanation. Number 4, move a procedural motion. With respect, Madam Mayor, could the elected member please be permitted to continue with his questions, please? And in terms of the business of the council, that particular item does not relate to, the questions did not relate to the agenda, that they do not have to, given the broad definition of the term, the business of the council. Could the elected member please be allowed to
According
ask
to
questions?
item 3.11, 1B, questions are to relate only to the business of council and are not to be relate directly to an individual council member. So therefore, I rule those questions out of order.
My third question is to the CEO. Why did the CEO allow the Mayor to obtain legal advice for
I rule
personal
that
usage
question
from
out
the
of
governance
order
and legal
again
team?
under 3111B, and I order you to desist now, and you are not allowed to discuss any more. If you do this again, Councillor Wright, I will call you a disruptive according to the standing orders, and you will not be able to argue anything in future in this meeting. So please be careful with your fourth question.
So you're not allowing me to ask any questions which are of council business?
Madam Mayor.
Forum when the CEO...
Just be quiet. You've been ordered to be quiet by the chair. Deputy Mayor Treby, can you please clarify?
Point of order. I move that the member no longer be heard.
Point of clarification, Madam Mayor. Is that for the whole of this evening's meeting or just for this particular agenda item, please?
Be careful what you say here, Deputy Mayor Treby. Are you going to not allow me to participate in debate during a council meeting which I'm being elected to?
I move that the member no longer be heard.
And I second that. Thank you.
Just a point of clarification. Which standing order is being quoted in support of this point of order, please?
Deputy
Using the
Mayor.
current standing orders, Local Law 2021, not the standing orders, Local Law 2008.
21.
21 that was used at the briefing session last week, which standing orders were repealed on 21 May last year.
Under 4.15, preservation of order with council members, the presiding person is to preserve order at all times and may call any member to order and call them to cease whenever, in the presiding person's opinion, there is cause to do so. And I have seen there is cause to do so, to call you to desist, to cease. We'll take this to a vote now.
Sorry, can you clarify, Councillor Wright was asking question is to cease relating to the asking of the questions or actually participating in the discussion?
Can you give us
I guess because the nature of the issue is the questions.
Councillor Treby, can you clarify that in your opinion with your motion?
It was clear, Madam Mayor, that you provided clarification under section 3.111B of standing orders as to why those questions were out of order. I, as would have most other councillors, recognise that Councillor Wright ignored your direction and continued to do so with his subsequent questions. It was within standing orders that you specifically raise it out of order. and the actions of ignoring those questions and speaking above you, as is your right. And Councillor Baker is not correct when he quotes standing orders. It's the role of the chair to keep order in council meetings, and it was clear that that was not the case. And on that basis, I think it was appropriate to move a motion that the councillor be no longer heard, certainly, at the very least, in councillor question time.
Madam Mayor, can I speak to the point of order, please?
No, you can't. You can't speak.
Please.
You can't speak to a point of order according to the
Well, I seek leave to make a personal explanation because I've been misquoted in the remarks of the last speaker, and I ask that I be granted leave to provide a personal explanation.
I will allow you to give a personal explanation, but if any of it goes beyond a personal explanation and goes into the matter of any questions, I will rule that out of order.
So if I could just quote from standing orders, I'm sure every elected member has a copy of the current standing orders before them, dated 21 May last year.
No, Councillor Baker, you are to speak to Councillor Treby's immediate past statement and not bring new information in, okay?
No, he said that my interpretation of Standing Order 4.7 was incorrect. I'd just like to quote directly from that, and elected members can make their own decision. It states, a member must not interrupt another member who is speaking other than to, number one, raise a point of order, number two, to call attention to the absence of a quorum, number three, to make a personal explanation under clause 4.12, or number four, to move a procedural motion. When you stopped Councillor Wright from even asking the third question, which he never had opportunity to finish, in that particular case, you didn't raise a point of order to him directly. He did not state what the point of order was. All he was doing was asking a question about the business of the council. The business of the council, as defined in the Standing Orders Local Law 2021, does not solely relate to the agenda, the restrictive agenda before the elected members tonight. It relates to any matter involving any business of the council. It's a very broad term. That's my response to the point of order. Thank you.
Well, I would challenge that because it needs to be about council business, and according to the standard orders, it is not to be addressing an individual or a person or a CEO executive member, which it was, and I, as a preservation of order under 4.15, the presiding person is to preserve order at all times and may call any member to order or to cease whenever, in the presiding person's opinion, there is a cause to do so. I believe there is a cause to do so because those questions were directed at individuals and were not about the business of council, and that is my ruling.
Point of clarification, Mayor.
You've been advised that we're doing a motion that you don't discuss, so I would, you're on really thin ground.
Are we voting on just for councillor question time, or are we voting for the whole meeting?
At this point in time, we're voting on the councillor question time.
Thank you.
She's left the meeting. So are we ready to vote? We'll put the vote now. Sorry? Oh, can I have a second of... I seconded it. Yep. Yep.
I think there's an absence.
So the procedural motion is passed, and those who've voted against the procedural motion is Councillor Newing, Councillor Wright, Councillor Baker and Councillor Miles.
Madam Mayor, I ask that the votes be noted in the minutes, please.
Yes, they are noted in the minutes, and I've just announced
And I think there was one abstention too, technically speaking. I think the CEO would understand the term one abstention.
Councillor Coetzi's left the room and gone home. So are there any questions from any other councillors this evening?
Can I just ask for clarification from you, Mayor, because I'm now confused from previous rulings. You've indicated tonight, over the last couple of moments, that you only want questions from councillors to do with the agenda item that we have before us. Is that your rulings?
My ruling is council business, but not about individuals. It says very clearly in the standing orders that you are not to direct questions at individual council members or executive staff, and that was out of order, and Councillor Wright did not obey that ruling.
So just to finalise my clarification, so if an executive member or yourself or anybody attends meetings and the council would like to know how that meeting went, that is not allowed to be asked anymore.
Those questions can be asked through email to the council members and to the executive.
Madam Mayor, just another point of clarification, just so the precedent book is set, so to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Baker.
If I can,
What
please.
is the clarification
The clarification
about?
is that Standing Orders 3.11 is titled with the words questions from members. It runs for 6 subparagraphs. Subparagraph 6 states, and I quote, insofar as it's relevant, if a question is directed by a member to another member or to an employee who has an interest in the subject matter, then the other member may be permitted to respond. So in terms of standing orders not allowing for members to ask questions of other elected members, with respect, in my respectful submission, that's contrary to the express literal interpretation of subclause 6 of Standing Orders 3.11 of these Standing Orders Local Law passed on 21 May 2021. Thanks.
I'm sorry, I've made a ruling on this, and that's it. Okay, moving on. Petitions. I see Councillor Herridge has some petitions to be collected. Not you tonight? Who has the petitions? Oh, Councillor Parker, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Aitken. I have a petition signed by 22 petitioners. It reads, we the undersigned do formally request Council's consideration. We are petitioning Council to ensure that during further election campaigns, candidates are prevented from placing signs on the road verges throughout the city which would comply with current sign local law. We seek assurance now, as during October 2023 elections will be held in all 7 wards, plus the election of the mayor. In past years, signs have been confined to private property. The penalty should apply to candidates, and it does, as it does with small business. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Parker, and there's Councillor Rowe has a petition as well.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a petition signed by 58 residents, and the petition reads, we, the undersigned, support the removal of speed humps on Blackmore Avenue in Girraween because they are a hindrance to local residents and ineffective in reducing road safety issues. We ask the Council to consider other mechanisms. We request this issue be dealt with in a timely manner, with a preference for a decision at the last Council meeting for the year.
Thank you. We now move to reports. Any declarations of interest by council members, including the nature and extent of the interest, are to be made at the commencement of an item to which the interest relates. Declaration of interest forms are to be completed and handed to the Chief Executive Officer. Our first report this evening is from Planning and Sustainability, and it's item PSO 1-1122, proposed scheme amendment to number 203 to DPS 2 to introduce an additional use of office at 7 Printerville Drive, Wangara. And who would like to move this?
Mayor, just as a point of clarification, we need to vote on the petitions.
Oh, sorry. We'll move on to voting for the petitions first. Who's moving them? Councillor Treby, seconding Councillor Baker. Councillor Huntley. And that was passed unanimously. Now, moving on to planning, who would like to move PSO 11122? Yes, Councillor Miles moved. Who would like to second it? Yes, Councillor Huntley. Councillor Miles, would you like to speak to this item?
Just briefly, Mayor, the proposal or the amendment is quite explanatory. We had a very good briefing on this by the administration and also by the proponents who came into council and spoke to us about this. Additional use in and around Wangara for office space, I think, is something that administration are looking at for the future, and I recommend the proposal be received.
Councillor Huntley, would you like to speak to this?
I think I'm in total agreement with Councillor Miles, so that's all.
Speakers for? Thank you, Councillor Baker, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be very brief. In short, the recommendations are common sense recommendation. All development applications of this kind will no doubt arise in due course. There is a glut of unleased office and semi-retail and light industrial space available within Wangara, as it's known, and also Enterprise Park. And once again, the recommendation will assist landlords in obtaining lessees to lease premises. It will broaden the scope of the permitted uses in certain circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Speakers against? Speakers for? Councillor Civic.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I wasn't here last week, but knowing the Wangara industrial estate and especially this service industrial area, it is very important. Councillor Baker makes the correct assessment that many properties have been built with office accommodation, and I'm glad that we're looking at this across the board, especially with this additional use and specific use zone for offices. And there are many buildings that have now been built with that very thing in mind, but have been restricted under the code. So I'm really pleased that this is starting to move forward in this particular area, and it would certainly take up a lot of the space that has been vacated over time. So certainly happy with the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Civic. Any speakers against? Any more speakers for? Yes, Councillor Nguyen.
I also like to support this item. I think it reflects the reality of what is happening within the Wangara area over the last 30 years, where a number of offices have been used within this urban development area. So it's a step forward and just to plan ahead. And I think this is a good outcome for the owners and landlords, and it will certainly increase the value of the properties in this area as well.
Thank you, Councillor Nguyen. Speakers against? Speakers for? I don't think you need the right of reply, Poi, because everyone's been supporting of it. I just put it to the vote now. Thank you. And that was passed unanimously. We move on to item ASO 11122, petition PTO2 922, request for road closure of Beverley Burt Hall Streets in Quinns Rocks. I have a mover, Nat Sangali, and a seconder, Councillor Parker. Councillor Sangali, would you like to speak to this, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very happy to support this one. This has been a long time coming. This isn't the first time that residents have asked for some traffic management on Burt Street. It predates my time on council, was when the initial requests were coming through. I want to thank administration for thoroughly looking into the roads that are leading into this area and the actual finishing place, which is obviously the beach. So it is not just a local road attracting local traffic, but it's attracting traffic from outside of the local area, although it was only ever built to take local traffic. I did note last week that there was some concern about traffic being moved onto other roads. All I can say about those other roads is those roads were built to withstand that type of traffic. They are wider roads that traffic would be moving onto. One is definitely a bus route, therefore we know that that road is wide because the buses go down it, and the other one also has speed humps on it, so traffic speeding will not be a concern, well, less of a concern. So I'm very hopeful that everyone will support this tonight, and I want to thank the residents for their patience as well, while we have made sure that we have crossed all our T's and dotted our I's before we put this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sangalli. Councillor Parker, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I support the recommendation and certainly hope that the steps taken will improve the driver behaviour on these streets. As a local resident and close to all of the above streets, I am constantly shocked at the speeding and hooting that takes place in this area. I feel desperately sorry for the local residents and certainly hope that this is going to help them in all ways, because it's people walking on the roads, it's people on bicycles. It really and truly is an absolute death trap. And in all honesty, I'm really surprised that nobody has been killed in this area before. So I certainly hope that this helps and strongly support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. And any speakers for? Yes, Councillor Civic.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be brief. I mean, this is Old Quinns here, and it's only 2 streets back, but certainly in favour of the recommendation. It's the wisest move. And Burt Street, Beverley, Hall Street and Beverley Crescent really are a link road from Quinns to Ocean Drive. It's very important to keep it open, and the recommendation says to have calming devices or treatments put into this particular street. I think it is a very, very important street for the general Old Quinns area, and I think the correct recommendation stands. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Civic. Any speakers against? Speakers for? Yes, Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to lead on from what Councillor Civic has just said, I agree with what he said. When you look at the map attached to the agenda, it's quite strange that there is one continuous carriageway connecting Quinns Road with the Ocean Drive, one continuous carriageway, yet it comprises of 3 separate and distinct streets by name only, notwithstanding the fact that it's a continuous carriageway. It may well be that the history of the subdivision within this area within Old Quinns was done on a staged basis, and the residential parcels of land to the west of Burt Street and Beverley were, no doubt, perhaps, well, I could be wrong, subdivided last, because it just seems unusual to have a continuous road which has 3 separate names. The other thing is that the traffic treatments proposed by Mr Harbinder Singh are somewhat unique, given the unusual nature of the topography of the length of carriageway and the twists, turns and bends. It would take a great deal of traffic management ingenuity to devise traffic management treatments that will seek to substantially overcome the issues that are complained of by local residents. Yes, I commend the recommendation, and we have 400,000 listed in the long-term capital works budget, so this is fully funded up to 400,000, and yes, let's get cracking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Any speakers against? Speakers for? And on that, I put the vote. Everyone, we will vote. Thank you. And that is passed unanimously. We go on to item ASO 2 1122, which is the Kingsway Sporting Complex upgrade of the soccer field floodlighting separable portion 3. Do I have a mover for this? Yes, Deputy Mayor Treby. Seconder, Councillor Rowe. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Treby, would you like to speak to this?
Oh, just very briefly, I would actually commend the work of the Assets Directorate. Having to look at the tender bids as they previously were submitted, and looking at options and alternatives where we could meet the functionality of the brief with options and opportunities with componentry that had not been previously considered. I'd have to say the outcome of bringing in the product, I think it's the Raptor LED lights, now brings that portion within the budget. So I think it's important. It's a fantastic project. The community and the sporting clubs who use that facility will absolutely benefit enormously. but it should be a commendation through to the Assets Directorate to work with options and opportunities, to work within the budget and to come up with an outcome that I think is actually far in excess and well advanced upon what the original scope was, or the intent of the scope. So all thanks should go to the Director of Assets and his team.
Thank you, Deputy Treby. Councillor Rowe, would you like to speak to this item?
Yes, Mayor. I know the contents of the report goes quite into depth, so I just wanted to offer a little bit of context in terms of the success of one of the clubs that utilises the facility, that being Olympic Kingsway. So they moved to Madeley more than 45 years ago, and it has a long history as a club of bringing the community together through local sport. They have other events at their facility, including a darts club and a bingo club as well. So in terms of a facility that brings people together, that club really has that reputation. Several players at the club went on to represent A-League teams, including Perth Glory, and they recently won the State League Division 1 Championship, which means they'll be promoted to the highest league of the state next year. So I think having not just adequate but high quality lighting at the facility, that'll be advantageous to that club, but also other clubs that use facilities in the vicinity. It'll make sure that Kingsway can continue to be a state-of-the-art sporting facility for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Are there speakers for? Any speakers against? And on that, I'll ask you to cast your vote. The voting is now open. And that was passed unanimously. We move on to the next item in community development, which is CPO 11122. It's the Reconciliation Action Plan 2023-25, and that is moved by Councillor Rowe, and I'm going to second that. I understand there is an amendment. Councillor Baker, do you have a seconder for your amendment?
Yes, my seconder is Councillor Wright. Even though he's been prevented from speaking tonight, I think he's still able to raise his arm and have his seconding acknowledged by signal, using a signal.
He was, that was for question time, that wasn't for...
Not for the whole of the
items
meeting. Not for the whole... Oh, excellent, thank you. That's good news, thank you. Yes, Madam Mayor, would you like me to...
You can continue with your amendment,
you,
Councillor Baker. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The amendment has been circulated to elected members. In addition to the amendment, of course, there is also the administration comment in response to the amendment. You'll note that administration supports the amendment for reasons that I'll deal with shortly. And also a detailed briefing note was circulated to elected members via the hub earlier this afternoon. I think it may have been even late yesterday, I'm not sure. But to cut a long story short, what my amendment seeks to do is to delete 3 discrete paragraphs only and replace Action 3.6 on page 7. In a nutshell, the point is simply this, that in terms of this particular gift, so to speak, of alleged artefacts they received back in 1986, if these gifts were received today under the city's current policy and management procedure, the city would not have accepted the gifts from the putative donor and would have asked for substantiation in terms of the provenance of the title to the artefacts as so described. In a nutshell, the paragraphs that are sought to be deleted, in effect, delete those parts of the plan which put the obligation on the city to determine who the true and lawful owners or custodians of these items are, and for that matter, whether they are, what's the word, the technical word, legitimate, so to speak, artefacts as such, but primarily to determine who the true and lawful owners are, insofar as it may even relate to traditional owners as well. Now, we don't know which state they're from, unfortunately, or which territory they're from. We understand that they were collected during a trip that the deceased estates testator undertook in 1981. And certainly in those days, or back in 86 at least, the city would regularly accept gifts of this kind. However, the admin has been unable to locate the policy that was then in place, either in 1981 all the way through to 1986. What's being proposed is that the management procedure, so to speak, will be reviewed, and hopefully, from my perspective, I think it would make more sense to transfer the, if you like, the title or possession of these items to a federal body or a state body, be it a museum or a state government department or agency, or federal government department or agency, having specialist employees, particularly in the area of the Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander affairs, and leave the obligation to them to locate or source the current lawful, true, traditional owners of these items. The concern would be that if we're unable to locate those owners, that could lead to all sorts of delays in finally repatriating these items. Once again, that's all that the amendment seeks to do, to allow for review of the management procedure, to ensure that the city is in a very good, strong position when dealing with these items and delivering them to a proper authority who is far better equipped, both in terms of employing experts, Indigenous anthropological experts, and also in terms of having resources as well, but more importantly, in terms of having the express statutory constitutional power, particularly the federal government under the federal constitution. So that's the intent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Councillor Wright, do you want to speak to this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Very supportive of Councillor Baker's amendment, basically allowing us to amend this procedure to approach the state and federal governments. I don't believe this is the role of local government, and I think we are overstepping in this area. I believe that there may be other projects that are already out there, and for this to be included in a state or federal-led initiative, I think is a good thing. And, you know, you may find other information out there in terms of what other local governments are doing. I'm certainly in favour of the actual Reconciliation Action Plan, so I am supportive of removing the last 3 paragraphs about this repatriation project because, like Councillor Baker said, we don't know how much this may cost in the long term and how long this will take because it is a long-term project. So I do think there are better ways of utilising our funds. I don't think this is the role of local government. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any speakers for? Councillor Miles?
Yeah, look, I am supportive of the undertaking, sorry, for the administration to undertake a review of the repatriation and sacred private materials management procedure. I think it is important, and I understand the city may in time be asked to take other material that we're not really too sure of its origins, or the origins may not be given to us in the correct manner. So in this case, I think it's only right that we do ask administration to look at this and review this policy, and also at the same time have a serious look at being able to pass these materials over to state and or federal agencies who are far more resourced to be able to operate on the whole of Australia, as opposed to us just putting it up on our website saying that we have some artefacts, we believe they may be from this area or that area, whereas some of the state government and federal people will be able to probably narrow it down right down to an actual area of location where they can actually pass them on. So I am supportive of the amendment for administration to do the review. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mize. Speakers against? Speakers for? Yes, Councillor Nguyen.
I won't repeat the comments made by earlier councillors, but suffice to say that we are living in times that we do need to take a different approach to how we focus our energy resources and funding for the future. We know that we have limited resources. There are cost implications, and there are certain budgets that keep on rising all the time. So we really need to focus on our core services, and this is part of that approach, and I do support this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Nguyen. Any speakers against? Speakers for? If there are no more speakers, that we've had everyone supporting this amendment, so I'll put it to the vote. Please cast your vote. So there were 11 for and 1 against, and that was Councillor Rowe. Okay. Moving forward, we have the amended.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I move that the motion as amended be agreed to.
Says that's where we're going to, the motion as amended. That's what I was going to. Yes. So this was moved, Councillor Rowe, seconded by myself. Councillor Rowe, would you like to speak to this? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd gladly like to speak to this as one of the delegates on our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Community Reference Group near Cuddigan Court, and I'm grateful that Councillor Sangali will be joining me on that committee as well. I believe RAP's an integral part of our reconciliation journey. It promotes truth-telling, active listening and shared responsibility for closing the gap. While plans are also adopted by other levels of government and private enterprise, it's important that our city plays a strong leading role in this process. Our council benefits from an incredible register of local heritage, but it also plays a role in significant land development. The interaction between these two signify why we have a responsibility to produce this RAP and commit to the deliverables and work collaboratively to lead progressively in this area. I was pleased to see the target for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander employees at the city was exceeded in 22-23. We now have 18 employees in a wide variety of positions with leadership responsibilities as well, which I think is very noteworthy. The RAP must be accompanied by training opportunities that foster an inclusive and respectful workplace culture. So I was pleased to hear the CEO last week provide an update on the cultural sensitivity training that will be available to elected members as soon as a preferred provider has been selected. I would like to acknowledge the efforts of Near Cuddigan Court, our community reference group. It's a privilege to be a member on that group, alongside the Chair, Derek Nannup, and Deputy Chair, Judith Birchall, and all the other members. Finally, I think we should pay respect to the hard work of the Director, Ms Terreling, Katie Russell, and the Community Development team who have been working through this process with Reconciliation Australia for quite some many months. So I fully endorse this report to Council.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Yes, I agree with all of your statements. In fact, Community Development has been working with the RAP Committee for years. As long as I've been on Council, it's been a work in progress, and we're a long way ahead of a lot of other local governments. I particularly like the core pillars of the RAP program or the RAP Committee and action plan of relationship, respect and opportunities. And as we build relationship, as we respect each other, we will move forward with good opportunities. And so I ask my fellow councillors to support this. Are there any speakers for? Yes, Councillor Civic.
Yes, I'm happy with the recommendation, Madam Mayor, but just wanted to make a point that with regards to the Indigenous or Aboriginal artefacts that we have, which are not of this particular area, and it may well be difficult to actually source where they actually came from if we do pass them on to the state or federal governments, etc., etc. But just to make a point that the city receives gifts from everywhere. All sorts. We keep them as a memento from people who have visited the city on special occasions, etc., etc. So we do hold those. Whether these the source of these artefacts are actually found and returned, fine. But we've got to remember that they were gifted to us by someone in the 1980s, and I think that's in the report. But I just think that we should rethink that position, even though I'm hearing Councillor Baker and what he has said. But if they don't need to be sent, we can accept them as gifts and carry on in the same way. So I'm still happy with the recommendation, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Savitton. Any speakers against? Speakers for? Yes, Councillor Baker.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'd like to endorse the motion as amended. Once again, without going into the particulars of the amendment, my view, though, however, is that if we're going to be fair income about this, we need to skillfully devise, and we'll take a very skilled wordsmith, skillfully devise a set of KPIs to determine whether or not we are progressing down the correct path and we're actually achieving something. We are moving towards reconciliation. For example, with Aboriginal employment at the city, we set a goal for that, a KPI, and we met it. We exceeded it. using exactly the same logic with all the other key actions, I think we did need to have KPIs. But perhaps that can wait for the review of the further review of the draft once it's passed. I'm not sure when it's due to be reviewed, in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, 4 years' time. That may be something we'd look at, but I think that is the only way to test, as with all, many things in life, whether you're moving forward, so to speak. Certainly are in terms of employment, and it may well be that we are in terms of the other actions that are required to be taken, but we need to be able to measure it, so to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Any speakers against? Speakers for? Yes, Councillor Sangalli.
I'm happy to support this one as well. I thank Councillor Baker for his amendment and wanting to review that. I think that's a very good learning opportunity for us all when it comes to the history of the Aboriginal people, and I look forward to that review. I will say that being involved in the RAP, I have loved every single minute of it every time I've been on it, because it is a learning opportunity, and although I have lived on this land my entire life, I am always learning about what happened before me, and I really encourage everybody to get involved and listen to what has happened.
Thank you, Councillor Sangalli. Any speakers against? Speakers for? If there are no speakers for, there's been no one against it. I'm going to move this to the vote. Could you please cast your vote? And that has been passed unanimously. We now move on to item CPO 21122, which is the Community Funding Program Flagship Fund Application Amendment. Can I have a mover for this?
Declaration of interest, please, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Madam Aiken. I move that with regard to agenda item CP02-11/22, that I disclose that I do have an impartiality interest to declare. I advise that I've been a member of the RSL for over 30 years, and I declare that there may be a perception that my impartiality on this matter may be affected, but I nonetheless declare that I will consider this matter on its merits and vote accordingly. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Do I have a mover for this?
I need a declaration.
Go ahead, Councillor Huntley.
Thank you. So I need to declare on CPO 211-22, Community Funding Program Flagship Fund Application Amendment, that I also am a member of the RSL, and particularly the member of the RSL that's being discussed here. I do disclose that for reasons, as a consequence, there may be a perception that my impartiality on the matter may be affected, and I declare that I will consider this matter on its merits and vote accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor Huntley. Do I have a mover on this? Yes, Councillor Sangalli. And a seconder, Councillor Baker. Thank you, Councillor Sangalli. Would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to support this one. It's been a great pleasure to actually watch the RSL in Yanship increase their numbers every year. Their ceremonies have been an absolute pleasure when I've been able to attend. I have not been able to get to all of them, but the ones that I've been to have been absolutely great. And to see the community actually adopting their RSL and supporting them is a wonderful thing to see, and I look forward to seeing what they can do the next time.
Thank you, Councillor Sangalli. Councillor Baker, would you like to speak to this item?
Yes, I'll be very brief, Madam Mayor. The recommendation has overwhelming merit. I agree with what Councillor Sangalli has said. The Yanship Two Rocks sub-branch is very proactive indeed. And as you may recall, Madam Mayor, there was a special event they hosted at Old Nursery Park a couple of weeks ago to commemorate the Queen's Silver Jubilee. I should add that the event was organised prior to her death, her unfortunate death, of course. And, of course, the feature of the event was a planting of trees, of course, and having appropriate plaques or pins. They have moved ahead in leaps and bounds in the last year or two, from what I've seen. Very well organised, very proactive, all hard-working members, and as Councillor Sangalli has said, their membership base is expanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Do I have any speakers for this? Speakers against? And on that, because I have no one against it, I will move this to the vote. Please cast your vote. And that was passed unanimously. I move to item CPO 31122, the DORDAC KEPAC community engagement results and next steps. Deputy Treby, would you like to move this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And I will second it. Deputy Treby, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a very pleasing report that comes before Council. Of course, Councillors, as you'll note in the report, this is phase 4 of the community consultation and engagement process. It is the 4th time that Council has been out to the community to talk about the library to be located opposite Broadview, overlooking the lake at the DORDAC KEPAC. It's a fantastic opportunity for the community to be involved. The feedback that we received through this engagement process certainly is very consistent with all of the feedback and consultations that we have. Councillors, I'll just remind you, in phase 1 we had 1,407 responses. For anyone who's been on council for any length of time, that will tell you that the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Rarely do we get that level of feedback on a project of this nature. It's also relevant to talk about the passage of time, the funding for this facility, how it came to be. The original idea was that there was an amount of money that was borrowed by a previous council. A lot of that money went in to fund things such as the Wanneroo Library and Museum, a number of other key facilities right throughout the city. $6 million of that funding vehicle was set aside for this particular library. And of course, over the passage of time, there have been opportunities for other levels of government to recognise the fantastic opportunity that has come to pass. We have been very fortunate to receive that $3 million funding commitment from the state government for a youth innovation hub, and that very much plays hand in glove to what the future of libraries will be. They are a place of lifelong learning from youth through to seniors, and that co-location is a marvellous thing as well. Interestingly, the funding, of course, was an addition to the library and conditional upon the library being there. So, in respect of the funding, we had the $6 million. That's been in our essentially reserves for a significant period of time, and it's about time we get on with the project. We have that $3 million grant from the state government funding, and the difference of $1.45 million is probably testament to the condition of the construction market and the passage of time between the original funding being identified and where we find ourselves today. It's a fantastic opportunity. I think in this, with the feedback we received from the community and with the streams of programs that are being offered to be delivered, I think there's some fantastic future opportunities for us at this particular location, and I commend the report to Council and seek your support.
Thank you, Deputy Treby. I'm very excited about this. Sorry?
Councillor Rowe wants to make a declaration.
Oh, you want to make a declaration. Sorry, Councillor Rowe.
That's okay, Mayor. For extreme caution, as I often do when any matter related to this item comes up, I'm going to declare interest of impartiality in relation to CPO 311/22, noting that I work for the member for Lansdale. I declare that I will consider the matter on its merits and vote accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. I'm very excited about this project. It's a fantastic project for the community. It's a youth innovation hub, and a lot of our younger councillors really want more for the youth, and this is where bringing it. I was interested to look at the comments from all of the children from the primary schools and their comments about what a library is and what a library means to them. And it seems to be very contemporary, that what children in the schools want a library for. This is a very exciting time, exciting program, and fantastic for the community. And I just recommend that my fellow councillors support it. Thank you. Speakers for. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. I wish to put an amendment to this item, please, if I may.
Do you have a seconder?
Councillor Baker.
Councillor Baker, yep. Councillor Baker, have you seen the amendment?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. May I speak now, please?
Yes, you may speak to the amendment.
Thank you, Mayor. The reason for putting this amendment up is I believe that there is a strong need for a youth innovation hub. However, the feedbacks that I've received from the community have been that the library is too traditional and is not that forward-thinking STEM project. And some of the questions I've received when I posted about it were questioning about the library. And I would like to refer to page 116, which is the engagement table, which was added from last week's briefing session. And I think Councillor Baker raised a good point about, do we classify views as a positive or a negative? And really they're a neutral statement. So for this debate's sake, looking at the table, there's 138 comments plus 79 participants at a meeting. So that leaves a total of 217. So if you remove the views and unique visitors, because they don't really count as feedback as such, that just shows that someone's visited the site. You know, you could have 4 or 5 people visit a site and create a view. Obviously, unique visitors is individual people. But in terms of the actual respondents and comments, and I had to clarify with the director the questions that were asked during this survey, and the 3 questions that were asked was choose the top 6 service programs and activities you would like to see delivered at Dorduck Kepper, which is a close-ended question that delivers the participant to a certain outcome. The second question was please use space below to provide any additional service programs or activities you would like to see delivered at Dorduck Kepper, again close-ended question. And the third one was please use the space below to provide any additional comments on the concept designs. There was no question that asked participants whether they thought the need for the library was in there. I do think there needs to be additional community consultation and actually broaden that view to ask whether there is actually a need. As Deputy Mayor Treby brought up, there was a loan that was taken out for these projects, which was great, and obviously back then there was a need for that, but I think there's a time to rescope and resurvey the community on the need for this project. I certainly think that this project, you know, not proceeding ahead with the library component, there's a 7.5 million savings on that because the library, the Youth Innovation Hub is for the 3 million grant, which I'm happy to support that up until that point. But the 7.5 plus the ongoing costs of running that library, and obviously that destroys our pathway of what we're trying to achieve in the placemaking approach, which is symbolising Girraween as a strategic hub. So that, obviously Wanneroo, Yanchep and Girraween were the 3 main areas, so I didn't see Lansdale in that at all. So I think this is the wrong area for that type of project in that scope, and certainly from the feedback questioning the actual project for this, I think there needs to be some more community consultation on this. And for the Youth Innovation Hub, there was certainly feedback that I got from young people when I spoke to them that these facilities that are located next to other facilities with older or adults doesn't work well. Youth need their own space, and I think to have this co-located next to a hub, a library hub, which is going to have parents and all that, has not worked in the past, and you could see in other local governments where this hasn't succeeded as well. The other points that I'd like to bring up as well is the concerns that were raised by the childcare centre because of the overshadowing. I think reducing the physical size of the building just for the youth hub will eliminate that problem, and also the environmental concerns as well, which is obviously limiting the footpack, the physical size of the building on the land, so we don't have to destroy as much vegetation. So I think this, obviously the work we've done up until now, we'll need to use obviously for a future project of some sort, but I think this is the wrong investment for the city, and I think with the feedback that we're getting from the general public, I think there needs to be a stronger focus on our core services and obviously upgrading the buildings that we need to upgrade, which are the older infrastructure like the Girraween Library and Hub, focusing on those existing projects that have been around for a very long time and were identified in the strategic community plan as well as our place strategy. So I'm certainly supporting my amendment to proceed with the state government grant for the $3 million for the youth precinct, but I certainly think this is a sensible financial responsibility that we save this additional money and put that towards other projects.
Councillor Wright, you've run out of time. You've done 5 minutes. Does anyone want to move for him to speak further? Have you finished your... Okay.
Thank you,
I would like a point of clarification. Item 2 says approve the Youth Innovation Hub concept design as detailed in attachment 5. That doesn't seem to be what your amendment is meant to be. It says it means do not approve the Youth Innovation Hub concept designed in attachment 5, progressing to detailed design to bring to council, because you want it brought to council forum. You don't want it approved in the item. Is that correct? It's a very confusing...
No, the Youth Innovation Hub concept plan is accepting the concept plan that we've already designed, but without the actual library component. So basically keeping the same size, shape, everything we've done with the building, but just proceeding with the facilities and the actual things inside the hub that is contributing to the Youth Innovation Hub component of it. So basically in attachment 5, we're approving everything in that youth hub part, like the function room, the recording studio, gaming room, and not supporting any of the reception, library, staff working room, quiet study area, activity room and wet activities. So it's basically proceeding with the left half, which is anything that is identified for the Youth Innovation Hub component, which obviously comes under that funding grant that we're receiving.
So in point of actual effect, you actually want it completely redesigned, missing 50% of what is in this design. So attachment 5 is not what you actually want. Which is why I said bring it to a council forum.
Okay.
Councillor Baker, would you like to speak to this amendment, please?
Thank you. Very brief. It's interesting looking at the history of this proposed facility. It started life as known as the Southern Suburbs Library. That was back in August 2020, which I was elected as at that point in time. On that occasion, the design principles were endorsed for the facility. It was about to go to tender. Then, of course, we had, amongst other things, the donation of funding from the state government in September, the following month. September donation, or grant I should say, we'll pay for it through state taxes, a $3 million funding from the WA Recovery Plan to develop a youth innovation hub, bringing the total cost, the revised budget, to $10.5 million, which is one hell of a lot of money in today's terms, particularly given the cost of living crisis that most of us, or many of us, are experiencing. It seems to me that it's appropriate juncture to revisit the issue of community consultation and engagement, and to ask very pointed questions with clear definitions of keywords and phrases, very pointed questions as to what the community wants. I am unable to assess on a net area floor plan basis whether the facility, in terms of floor plan and net area being devoted to each use, is 50-50 as between the youth hub and the library. It's not clear to me. The other issue that often arises is how do you define a library in 2022, in November 2022? They certainly aren't what they used to be. Places of reading, research, very quiet places to go somewhere and study, not be harassed, to have a coffee. If you wanted to chat and carry on, you'd go downstairs and sit at the back of the library and sit on the lawn and chat and whatever. But the other thing too is that in terms of the primary uses that the survey members, or the members surveyed, said they would endorse. And these are the 6 dot points at the bottom of page 59 of the agenda. And they read largely what a library nowadays, I believe, truly does. A library with books, magazines, etc., 69%. Early childhood programs, 61%. STEAM or STEM programs, science, technology, etc., 60%. Community-led social events, well, you'd say 56%, but depending on what the social event is, of course, I assume it wouldn't be a loud, boisterous event. Study in quiet places, 52%. Many kids living at home have trouble studying for exams, trouble doing homework because it's just too damn noisy. There are too many little kids. There's no privacy, there's no quietness. They look for libraries as safe places to study and learn. In quiet, they can get their work done in the library on the way home from school, in some instances on the way to school. They can come home, then they can kick the footy around in the backyard or go down to the park or the beach or whatever. And the last proposed use was community art and games groups, 45%. Now, in terms games is not defined, of course. Does it mean card games? Does it mean computer games? But in any event, the primary proposed culture counts survey respondents, the primary respondents gave those 6 categories the highest scores. Now, following that, there was a follow-up, lead-up question, which asked whether or not any additional services or programs or activities should be included or delivered. And of course, that's when the other items are referred to, of course, when they refer to page 60, Lego clubs, exercise and mediation groups, community arts and crafts activities, social groups, different community rooms, youth and school programs. That just receives one express reference to the, in effect, indirect reference to the $3 million contributed by the state government to this facility. I really do think we need to tread very warily. Times are tough. Money's tight. This is a $10.45 million project. I think we need to go back to the community and get some further, indications as to how we proceed in terms of the use of the proposed floor area, and in particular to ask very pointed questions, but with very clear definitions of keywords and phrases in those questions. Otherwise, those questions can be loaded and different people may have different interpretations of the keywords and phrases. So the amendment, I believe, is cautious. It has considerable merit. We need to move forward very, very, very carefully, given the almost $11 million that will be spent on this project. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. I have a question. Director Terrelink, the funding for this project, is it specifically tied to specific outcomes? That is, a library and a community hub it's the funding. And if we don't provide the whole library and the whole community hub together, are we at risk of losing the funding for the project?
Through you, Mayor, I guess if we were to change the project to that extent, we would have to go back to the state government and understand what their appetite would be for that change, to understand if they would be keen to just deliver the Youth Innovation Hub. My understanding is certainly the discussions that we've had with the state government so far has been the Youth Innovation Hub combined with the library to deliver a whole facility. The other issue is that it would probably require a significant redesign of the Youth Innovation Hub, and I would expect that probably what's included in there currently, particularly in today's market, is probably not likely to be able to fit within the $3 million funding either. So it would need, I would suspect, a significant redesign. But certainly the conversations that have occurred with the state government to date have been the Youth Innovation Hub as a component of the whole facility.
So changing the project to this extent would actually risk the funding for the whole project?
Potentially it could. It would depend on whether the state government was amenable to that level of change to the project.
Thank you. Deputy Treby, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, just one question, I think, just around the whole issue of governance, probity and transparency. It seems as if the amendment was typed and considered, yet wasn't circulated before the meeting, either in hard copy or in email. I suppose my question is to the CEO. Mr. CEO, was the administration, or have the administration received any hard copy or forewarning of this amendment, number one? And as part of that normal process, because this is about transparency, allowing administration to provide their professional advice, was administration provided the opportunity to consider the implications of such...
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Wright.
Deputy Mayor Treby is imputing a motive towards me that I'm basically cheated the system on putting this amendment up. As an elected member, if I choose to put the amendment up, I can do so. If I don't, then I can choose my right not to do it. And that's why I chose not to circulate it before, because I wasn't sure whether I was going to proceed with it or not. And from the debate that Deputy Mayor and yourself has provided, I've decided to put that forward to the council to consider.
I understand that you've brought it forward, but I've never had an amendment that has, in my 9 years of being in council, that has not been brought to the CEO and has been brought in hard copy by a fellow councillor. And the CEO and administration have had the opportunity to examine it and comment on it and the validity. It hasn't happened to me in 9 years of being on council, so it isn't a normal practice to do it in this way. And I ask that you allow Deputy Mayor Treby to finish his question now. Thank you, Councillor Wright.
Madam Mayor, just to assist you in dealing with the point of order, that wasn't a valid point of order as it appears in standing orders. That was simply an opportunity to make a comment. Your ruling should have been, I rule it out of order. It is not a point of order. Having said that...
Adverse reflection on the chair. Thank you.
And also, Madam Mayor, just a point of order. Other councillors interrupting through debate. If you could please just bring to their attention. Certainly this is about... and it may well be an issue this evening about transparency, about good governance and about probity, and making sure that elected members have the opportunity to receive good information and not opinion masquerading as fact. So just on those questions, Mr CEO, have the administration received this amendment prior to this council meeting? Having asked that question, has administration had the opportunity to review and provide professional commentary to council and all councillors to consider this amendment on its merits?
CEO, could you please respond to this, please?
Thank you, Mayor. In response to Councillor Treby's question, I think Councillor Treby alluded to the process followed by administration, which I think is reflected quite accurately in Councillor Baker's amendment earlier on this evening. In terms of have the administration been privy to the amendment prior to the commencement of this meeting, I certainly haven't, but I will ask the Acting Manager of Council and Corporate Support, who coordinates and assists Council in the preparation of amendments, whether he or his team has.
No notice before this evening.
Thank you. I do note Councillor Wright advised myself just prior to the meeting when he provided a copy of the amendment, prior to providing me a copy of the amendment, that a copy had been provided to the Council and Corporate Support team present in the minutes room this evening, but that was just prior to the amendment being circulated, if I'm correct. And then the answer to the second question, I think is answered by the response just provided by Mr Matheson.
Okay, is this a question? Okay, speakers for?
Clarification, Madam Mayor?
You're the seconder of the motion.
Yeah, just a clarification, if I can, please, given what there's been some water under the bridge since I spoke. Just a clarification.
Quickly.
And a question, yes. I would have thought that the time for objection of the kind referred to should have been raised at the time the mover sought to move the motion, not midway through the debate. It seems to be shutting the gate after the horse is bolted, so to speak. But anyhow,
with respect, we haven't.
There may be a reason for that, perhaps.
With respect, Councillor Baker, we haven't gone to the debate yet. The point of order was made before we went to the debate. The mover of the motion spoke to the debate. Spoke to the motion. The seconder of the motion spoke to the motion, and then we had a point of clarification, and we haven't gone to debate yet.
Yep, but
so that's.
Just one more point, if I can. Standing orders makes it clear that when there's a mover and a seconder and they move in second, that's when the debate starts, at the end of the seconder's speech.
the debate starts when I ask for a for or against. There was a point of clarification when, and that was brought first at the beginning. So can I have a speaker for, please? Yes, Councillor Nguyen.
Sorry, if I may speak in relation to the question regarding the timing of the amendment, and our experienced councillors would know that at 5.10, heading amendments, it reads, a member may move an amendment to a primary motion at any time during debate on the motion. Can you please clarify, Mr. Director of Legal, what does any time mean during the debate?
The CEO will answer this.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Questions relating to standing orders are really best put to the presiding person themselves to answer, as opposed to the city's administration.
I guess it's clear there's no requirement for notice to be given to anyone as long as it's moved at any time during the debate. So I think that satisfies that concerns that Councillor Deputy Mayor Treby has raised earlier.
If you have a look at 5.10.2, a member who wishes to move an amendment is to state the substance of the motion before speaking to it and is to put the amendment in writing. If, in the opinion of the presiding person, the amendment is significantly different to the relevant written recommendation of the committee or an employee, including a person who, under contract for services with the city, provides advice or report on the matter, or he or she is otherwise required to do so by the presiding person, the written terms of the motion or amendment are to be given to the CEO, who is to ensure they are recorded in the minutes, and every amendment is to be relevant and not negate the motion in respect of its moved.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. In that discussion, and for your consideration, because it will be your ruling, I would think that this so substantially changes the intent of the recommendation, it would not satisfy the requirement of an amendment. It would, in fact, be an alternative motion.
Yeah, removes half the facility.
It would be
Well, I would like to put an alternative recommendation from the floor, if Deputy Mayor would like to change the wording of that.
Madam Mayor, it's a point of order again, the interjection from the Councillor Wright. It was a point of order, and in discussion of a point in order with an interjection, I ask you to rule on the interjection.
I rule the interjection invalid because there is to be no discussion or debate on a point of order according to the standing orders. So
the point of order, I was simply asking the Chair, my reading of this here would in fact be an alternative as opposed to an amendment, because it so substantially changes the intent of the recommendation.
I would have to agree that it is an alternative and not an amendment, because we are changing the whole structure. We're making it from a library combined with a hub to just a youth hub, and that changes. We have to redesign, go back to the board again, and it is, you're exactly correct.
So, Madam Mayor, that being the case, I would, and the reading of how the meeting should then handle this motion would be to debate the substantive motion, and if the substantive motion fails, then the alternate motion would then be placed on the floor for debate.
Well, point of order, Mayor, you've already accepted
I would just like to seek an adjournment so that we can work through this. And I seek to adjourn the meeting from 19:30. Could I please have a mover for the adjournment for 15 minutes? Move Deputy Treby, seconded Councillor Rowe. Thank you very much. I adjourn the meeting. We put the vote, please, for the meeting adjournment, not the procedural motion. But this is the procedural motion. It says procedural motion, not adjournment.
No, the Jones.
Oh, okay, yep.
Councillor Miles hasn't voted yet. And Councillor Herridge hasn't voted yet.
Councillor Miles and Councillor Herridge, this is for the adjournment of the meeting.
Okay, so it's carried 10-2 with Councillor.
Carried 10-2 with Councillor Newen and Councillor Wright voting against the adjournment.
Sorry, we just waiting to go back on air, so we'll get...
We're just waiting to go back on air.
And then I'll get you to confirm that we... Sorry, legal. Do it again.
Yeah,
Sorry, the presumption.
that's what we're waiting for.
We're back on now. I'll get you to do that again. Just do a mover in seconds to resume again, if you don't mind.
I would like a mover, which is Councillor Sangali, and a seconder to open the meeting, Councillor Civic. And if everyone would like to cast their vote, voting is now open. And the meeting is open unanimously. Considering the response to the questions I asked admin and considering the debate during this amendment, I am ruling the amendment out of order and moving to the officer's recommendation, particularly as the amendment is more of an alternative. If the substantive is not passed, then we can vote on the amendment. So on that note, speakers for. Councillor Rowe.
I just have a point of order of clarification, please, Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Marr.
Just for my benefit, there was a mover and a seconder for the amendment, and that debate had started. How are you ruling that that amendment is no longer in play when it's already been minuted?
Because I'm considering the responses to the questions I asked admin and considering the debate during the amendment is an alternative, not an amendment, so therefore we weren't debating in the correct fashion, and therefore I am ruling the amendment out of order because it is an alternative, not an amendment, and moving to the officer's recommendation, and we will debate the substantive. If the substantive motion falls over, we will go to the alternative that Councillor Wright has brought. So the presiding member has made that decision. There will be no further discussion or argument, and I ask for supporters for this or movers on this, and so Councillor Rowe would like to speak to this item. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor, and I'll be speaking against, just to clarify. Oh, but for the substantive.
For the substantive.
Yeah, against
yes.
whatever that was. And I'm going to actually disclose something at first in terms of state government process, because state government process clearly reads that if an election grant is seeking to be amended or adjusted, it requires the consent and the support of the local member as well as the relevant minister who has direct responsibility over the department that oversees the actual funding. Now, I don't believe, to the best of my knowledge, but I'm happy to be corrected, if the local member was consulted in terms of this suggestion for it to be changed, and I'm happy to be proven wrong if the minister was asked for their opinion on it. Moving in terms of the substantive itself, I'm thoroughly supportive. The community anticipation has been growing since this facility was first proposed, and the Deputy Mayor, I think, adequately and substantially outlined why consultation numbers have dropped off over time, because people are just wanting the facility to be constructed. The first consultation had the highest number of responses, and there was overwhelming support for the facility and for the actual services as well. 4 rounds of consultation on, I really do think the community has had ample opportunity to engage effectively, robustly on this matter. The 3 separate consultations are outlined in the attachments of the reports, and I hope that members have considered that thoroughly. I think looking at the reason why the facility is required in the officer's recommendation in that suburb, the demography of the area illustrates how important it is and how integral it will be. More than 30% of residents in Lansdale are under the age of 18. There are soon to be 4 primary schools in the suburb, as well as a further 2 secondary and 2 primary schools in close proximity. They will be utilising both the Youth Innovation Hub components as well as the library components of that facility. More broadly, the long-term financial plan has set aside these funds for another library in the southern suburbs. The additional funding from the state will only improve the quality and overall appeal of the facility. The community has been incredibly patient since the first round of consultation on this project. I believe that it's time to maintain their trust, not to do anything that jeopardises the state funding that was promised not in the 2021 state election, but first in the 2017 state election. It's been more than 5 years now. And I think to not support this tonight would be, in my opinion, a grave disservice to the community. So I would strongly encourage elected members to support the substantive motion as is.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Do I have speakers against? Councillor Nguyen.
I do have a few questions to ask before I speak on this item, if I may. In relation,
Councillor Nguyen, are the questions related? Has this item been changed? Has this report been changed?
I have a point of order, actually.
I will deal with
Councillor Rowe said.
Councillor Wright. Could you be silent while I deal with Councillor Nguyen, one person at a time? Thank you very much. Councillor Nguyen, we had questions last week, and I will speak to the Director and I will ask the Director if there is any new information in this report. Director Terrelink, is there any new information in this report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As noted in the changes to the report since briefing session, there was additional information added as a result of the, or in response to the questions that were asked at the briefing session last week.
And those questions were about community consultation. Is that correct, Ms Terrelling?
Through you, Mayor, yes, that's correct.
Councillor Nguyen, are your questions about community
Yes.
consultation?
It's exactly.
Okay, I will allow that question. Thank you.
Follow up from my questions from the briefing last week. Some of those information have been included, but I need some clarification on the additional information that's been included in the report. Now, it seems to me that there has been a significant change from the first concept plan to what it is presented as a design now. The new design completely replaced what was originally intended.
Councillor Nguyen, that information was in the report last week that you could
Yes.
have asked questions about last week,
Madam Mayor,
and it hasn't changed
point of
this
order,
week.
please.
I'm giving the background.
So why are you asking questions
I'm
about
giving
that
the background to the
Point of order.
question I'm asking.
Councillor Baker?
Elected members, with the greatest respect, elected members are permitted to ask questions regarding an agenda item. It doesn't matter if a similar question was asked at the briefing session, that's irrelevant. They're not just confined to asking questions about new information that's been forthcoming since the briefing session. This elected member, with respect, is entitled to ask questions in relation to this agenda item. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, it's a point of order, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
The point of order, there are specific issues under which a point of order can be raised. Debate is not one of those. I would seek that you actually respond to the point of order raised by Councillor Baker with respect to the conditions under which a point of order can be raised and determine on that basis. I suppose what I'm saying is debate is not a point of order.
But complying with the standing orders is a point of order. He's entitled to ask questions, full stop. Full stop. This is a free democratic chamber. He's entitled to ask questions, unless they are scandalous, etc., which does not apply. He's entitled to.
Councillor Baker had opportunity to ask questions on that information at briefing last week, and if on new information he's entitled to ask questions on, but we're having a lot of questions going the whole time and we need to minimise this.
Point of order, Mayor.
Opportunities. You can wait until I finish speaking, Councillor Wright.
You're supposed to deal with a point of order as soon as it's brought up.
I'm dealing with a point of order now, and I will deal with the
I
first
raised it
point of
before
order.
Councillor Baker.
I'm sorry, Councillor Baker came up first. We were dealing with this first. So you will be quiet until I address you, Councillor Wright. Thank you. Councillor Baker, we have had lots of questions on reports that there were opportunities for it to be brought last week. If it is not on new information, there is no need to be debate on it. He can bring a statement, but not questions. If it is on new information, he is allowed to ask a question. If it's on not new information, I am ruling that questions are not done. He can speak to the item but not ask a question. Thank you. With respect, Councillor Baker, I have made my ruling. I have made my ruling. Thank you, Councillor Baker.
I move a procedural motion, a motion of dissent in respect of your ruling.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Who seconds the motion of dissent? Councillor Wright. Okay, we move the motion of dissent. I put it to the...
I beg your pardon, the correct...
Can I have the details of your dissent, Councillor Baker?
The correct wording, I should say, is your ruling, in other words, that the ruling by the presiding person be disagreed with. That's Standing Orders 7.11 of the 2021 Standing Orders Local Law. In short, you ruled, in effect, and the transcript will bear this out, and people, no doubt, listening and watching will bear this out, your ruling was that a councillor at a briefing session can only ask questions in respect of an agenda item if that councillor, if there is new information available, and it's that new information which has to be the subject of the questions. That is not the case at all. That is not the case. It's never been the case in any democratic chamber at all. Questions can be asked regarding the agenda item, provided they are relevant to the agenda item. The fact that there may or may not be additional information that the question does or does not relate to is irrelevant. There is still entitled to ask questions of in respect of an agenda item. And nowhere in these standing orders, or even those in perhaps Russia as well, I'm sure, is their right or power to ask questions restricted in that respect or regard. Thank you. You have before the chair a motion of dissent, please.
Thank you. And so therefore, with that, we move the motion of dissent. And we will cast our vote. Councillor Wright.
It is lost 4-8, and you should read out the names of the people.
It's lost 4-8, and those who supported the motion of dissent was Councillor Wright, Councillor Newen, Councillor Miles and Councillor Baker. Thank you. So, Councillor Newen, would you like to speak against the item?
No, first I would like to ask my questions.
Is it related to new information?
Yes, it is.
Okay, well then I will allow that question.
Okay. So in relation to the report that's been included in this item, I want to ask you in relation to the numbers that's been included as part of the consultation. Firstly, maybe I'll go firstly to the if you go to page 83, there's reference to facility that may be looked at this site, and one of that is 44% voted for a cafe. Now, we know that this design doesn't have a cafe. So my question is, and it's been all over all of the comments that's been given by the feedback is everyone wanted a cafe as part of the plan. Now, is there a cafe in this design?
Ms Terraleek, would you like to answer that question, please?
Thank you, Mayor. As council members will recall, the decision was made, given that we needed to bring the facility within the available budget, to remove certain elements, and one of those was the commercial tenancy.
Just a further question. With the cafe being removed, that was in consideration. There was a coffee shop nearby that people would be able to use, and we didn't want to go in competition with that coffee shop. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor, yes, there are two coffee shops, I believe, in the neighbouring shopping centre, and that was certainly a consideration by council members.
Thank you, Director Terralink. Councillor Nguyen?
Yes, and during the consultation period from August to September 2022, on page 59, it lists an extensive list of ways that we've consulted the community. I won't go through all those 11 or 12 dot points, one of which is a letter drop to household within 1 kilometre facility, 3,644 letters. There's visits to childcare centre, consultation with various schools, early schools, and out of there's 51 contacts, organisations, business networks, and it's very extensive. Now, out of that consultation, how many people responded, either positive or negative?
Director Terralink.
Thank you, Mayor. My understanding is that the letter of consultation referred people to the Your Say page, and the Your Say page had 1,070 views, or the social pinpoint, which is on the Your Say page, had 1,070 views, 379 unique visitors, 22 visitors made 51 comments.
Thank you for
Thank you, Ms Terralink. Councillor Nguyen.
So, out of just picking one number, out of just one of the strategy that we took, that is to send 3,644 letters, we've got 51 comments. That is 51 response. I can't work out the percentage, but it's certainly less than 5%.
Ms Terralink, would you like to comment on that?
Through you, Mayor, it was also part of the consultation is obviously also to inform the residents about the proposed facility. Obviously, if residents choose not to provide a comment, that's their choice. And with a lot of our facilities, we would probably get that level of engagement.
Councillor Nguyen.
I guess my concern is we're spending over $10 million on something, and we've got to get it right. And of the consultation that we have, only we're basing our decision based on 55 people on the design. Is that correct? Am I getting that right?
Ms Terralink.
Through you, Mayor, as requested at last week's briefing session, the table in attachment 4 actually provides an overview of the full level of consultation or engagement we've had with the community through this project since the proposed project was going to the Broadview site. So that's the full range of consultation, and that was at the request of council members that we include that information.
And I appreciate the information. It sort of supports my concern, the additional information that you've given. With the extensive consultation, there isn't a level of engagement that we need to actually support investing in a $10 million facility. I would prefer to go back to have an effective consultation to see whether there's anything more that we can do to engage the community. Can I ask you, what is the cost of further consultation if that was the case?
Can I just pass this on to the CEO, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Just in terms of the officer's report, the officer's report seeks to provide an overview to council aligned with its policy on community consultation engagement. It is quite difficult now for the administration to provide additional commentary in regards to the adequacy of the engagement strategy. That is probably more a debate discussion through this motion than a question to the Director of Community in Place. However, the Director of Community in Place may be able to provide an indicative cost of future consultation, but it's probably, I would imagine, a difficult question for the Director of Community in Place to answer without understanding what additional engagement council is seeking to then be able to base her cost estimate on.
Thank you, Mr Sims. Ms Terrelink, can you please clarify with me if there is a time limit for this funding, and will it expire and we will lose it and it'll be taken back to Treasury if we don't build this in a timely fashion?
Thank you, Mayor. We certainly have a time frame on the initial funding that was provided. So the state government has provided us already with funding to do the detailed design. So if we were not to progress with the project, we would have to return that funding. And then we would obviously have a time frame then on the next agreement that we would enter into in terms of the construction. So there's not a specific time frame on the bulk of the funding at this point in time. However, I would imagine that the state government is keen to see the funding spent as expeditiously as possible.
Thank you, Ms Terrelink. Have you finished speaking to this item?
Point of order, please, Madam Mayor, if I can.
Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, point of order.
Still haven't addressed my point of order.
7.7, I ask and move that the motion now be put. That's subject to clause 7.4, and 7.4 allows for the right of reply, and I waive my right of reply.
I need a seconder for that. Yes, Councillor Herridge seconds it. Okay, so we will move this motion.
I haven't had my point of order yet, Madam Mayor.
I'm sorry.
You can't deny the right to raise a point of order in a council meeting.
Okay, you raised your point of order, but we are going to the vote. You raise your point of order as soon as you finish.
I raised it before you closed debate, and you chose to keep answering Councillor Newen, and you're supposed to deal with that at the point of time.
Councillor Wright.
Well, then I should have my opportunity if you were in the mistake.
I'm giving you the opportunity now, but we will go straight to the vote.
Yes, that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. My point of order was in regards to 8.2 subsection 3. I would like the words that Councillor Rowe used. It would be a disservice to the community to vote against this, to be recorded in the minutes, please.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to the vote now. I know.
Madam Mayor, just by clarification, does the motion moved by Councillor Treby gag all further debate or questions regarding this agenda item?
That's correct.
So it's a gag motion, to use the vernacular?
It is not a gag motion. It is a procedural motion.
We are free to speak.
No, you are not free to speak. It is a procedural motion. We go straight to vote now.
Sorry, ma'am, that's the definition of gag. Thank you.
We will go to vote now. Thank you, councillors. Yes, the substantive motion.
That the motion be put.
Oh, that the motion be put, yes.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, can I just clarify, because I think the screen may not be clear. The motion that's about to be moved, as you've ruled presiding over this meeting, is that the motion be put, not the substantive motion that has now been removed from the screen. And I suspect the minute clerk will now put up procedural motion. Thank you.
Thank you. So Councillor Newen, Councillor Wright, Councillor Huntley, Councillor Parker, we're just waiting for your votes. We are voting for the substantive, we're voting for the procedural motion to go straight to the vote of the substantive.
So it's carried 8-4, and you need to read the red out.
It's carried 8-4, and those who voted against the procedural motion was Councillor Newen, Councillor Wright, Councillor Miles and Councillor Baker. So I now put the substantial motion.
Which the mover has waived his right, I believe.
Yeah, the mover has waived his right of reply. Okay, the substantive motion is passed, and those who voted against it was Councillor Nguyen, Councillor Wright, Councillor Miles and Councillor Baker. Thank you. So we now go to item CP04 1122, River Links All Abilities Playground Upgrades, Community Consultation Outcomes. Can I please have a mover for this item, please? Councillor Parker, a seconder, Councillor Zangali. Councillor Parker, would you like to speak to this, please?
Absolutely thrilled that this is coming to fruition. It's well overdue. The people around are incredibly happy about it. It's so good to have a good news story tonight, and I absolutely support it. Thank you everyone for going down this road, for the changes that have been made, everybody putting in their little bits and pieces. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Zangali, would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm happy to support this as well, and I agree with everything that Councillor Parker has said. I'd also like to thank the local member and the state government for their $2.6 million contribution to this. And I hope there's no amendments or alternatives that are going to derail it, but hopefully we'll get full support tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zangali. Speakers for? Councillor Miles.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And yes, I do support this particular, the what was it called again? The all-inclusive playground, which I think is excellent. I think the member that got the money for the city for this to go ahead, I think deserves the praise as well. As Councillor Zangali said, it is good that the community consultation is actually quite more extensive than the library at Lansdale, which did surprise me last week when I first saw this report. So I'm not sure whether this consultation had a different path than the one that was done for Lansdale, but it'd be very interesting to see how those consultation processes took place. The other part of it is obviously, like all notices, all motions that we have, it's nice to be able to talk on it.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. Speaker against? Speaker for? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Treby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's always very positive to get these projects supported by the state and ultimately for our community to benefit. It's an all-abilities playground at River Links, and I've strong faith that the surrounding community will have many years of use of that facility. It's also interesting to note that the funding for this came through, I think it might have been in the same election round, and probably not subject to 4 rounds of community consultation, which I think is a first for the city. It's an extensive amount of consultation in the former item, but of course, and it would be remiss of me if I didn't take this opportunity to thank all of the members of state government, because they have confidence in us delivering projects on their behalf. This project and every other project that we gratefully receive funding for, because they have confidence in us being able to deliver projects on their behalf. And just an interesting comment I can make. I know that I believe the CEO and a couple of other directors were with me in a conversation with the Minister for Transport when we were talking about it's a federal government commitment to Neerabup, and the comment from the Minister for Transport was it's fantastic that she can have confidence in Wanneroo, and we should be talking to some of our neighbours because they weren't able to deliver as fast as we can. So it's appreciated, I know, and I think maintaining that reputation in delivering these projects on behalf of state and federal governments also make sure that we retain their confidence when we get funding on their behalf to deliver these sorts of projects. And I know this will be a great project delivered to our community, and they will get great enjoyment from it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Treby. Speakers against? Speakers for? If there are no more speakers, I think I'll put it to the vote. The voting is now nearly open. It's open. And that was unanimously passed. I move on to item CPO 51122, response to petitions PTO 19/22 and PTO 110/22, installation of basketball pad at Longford Park, Darsh. And this item is moved by Councillor Herridge. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Rowe. Thank you. Councillor Herridge, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm super happy to finally have this before us. As a budget request of mine from this year to have something I could follow through for on residents that has started before my time with a fellow councillor. I know they are just as ready for this to be constructed as myself. It's taken some work to get here, and I'd like to thank administration profusely, especially our Manager of Community Facilities, Rowan Clem, and his team for keeping up with me and putting all of the pieces together. Our residents have been waiting since 2019, and I thank them for their patience as well and in presenting their views. Whilst a minority weren't in favour, I believe after install, any reservations they have will be alleviated. Thanks also for adding further information to tonight's report for the reasons on the positioning of the pad. I encourage my fellow elected members to support me with this item tonight. We will be encouraging our youth to be outside, to socialise together, rather than playing hoop in their driveways, which most of them actually do have. The park will be providing for many abilities, a newly refurbed play structure, footy and soccer goals, and now the very popular sport of basketball. The park is more than adequate in size to support it, and in also keeping in mind the noise that the recreational space actually also brings. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Herridge. And would Councillor Rowe like to speak to this item?
Briefly, Mayor, thank you. I'm supportive of the item for the following reasons. The 12 petitioners did not explain their reasons for objecting to the installation of the basketball pad. The project has been included in the Capital Works budget and was previously delayed due to COVID. There are 3 schools in close proximity, 2 of which are secondary schools, and the Director confirmed when the item was first introduced to Council that ages 12 to 18 are more likely to use the basketball pad facility rather than the playground. The park is already well utilised, and the pad will complement the new upgrades to the playground equipment, creating a better play space for kids of all ages.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. The speakers for? Thank you, Councillor Miles.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add, it was an interesting conversation last week. We were talking about the direction of how the court should be placed, and I know administration will obviously look at that going forward when they do the final construction. It just so happens that last Wednesday morning there was a big debate on the 6PR radio station, which I'm sure administration did pick up, and Mayor Vernon from Victoria Park had to justify why they were removing one of these that they'd only just constructed 3 months ago. So I think it is with caution, and I'm going to support it, but with caution, just for administration, right, for the noise. It's not necessarily the bouncing ball during the day, it's the bouncing ball from 10 till 1 o'clock in the morning for the older people that use it. The other issue I understand that can come about, which the Department of Sport and Recreation has put out some sort of policy on this. It was put out on the Liam Bartlett show last week, that you shouldn't really put these within 100 metres of a home, but I'm sure administration has all that information from last week. But other than that, I'm very supportive of the councillor wanting to have one of her election commitments put in place. Thank you.
Speakers against? Speakers for? Councillor Herridge, would you like the right of reply? Okay, so the item will now be put to the vote, and voting is now open. Please check your vote. And that is passed unanimously. Thank you. We move on to item CPO 61122, which is the review of the Bushfire Brigade's local law. Who would like to move this? Thank you, Councillor Sangalli, and second it? Councillor Miles. Councillor Sangalli, would you like to speak to this item?
Mayor, if you permit, can I please ask just one question? I wasn't actually here for briefing.
Yes, I will allow it. Thank you, Councillor Sangalli.
And it is just to do with the consultation. I just want to know, I note that we have consulted with the Brigade's executive and we've consulted with members of the public. Is there anything that prevents Brigade volunteers putting in a submission as a member of a public, either through the city themselves or under their constitutions? Are we aware of that?
Ms Terralink, are you able to respond to that question, please?
Thank you, Mayor. No, I don't believe there is any restriction on the volunteers providing a response.
Fantastic. Thank you. That's exactly the response I wanted to hear. I'm very happy to support this, and I am very happy to see that we have consulted with our brigades, because they are the ones that will have to act underneath this local law, and I look forward to seeing it through.
Councillor Miles, would you like to speak to this item?
Yeah, just to endorse the comments of Councillor Sangalli. I went to my first emergency management meeting where Councillor Sangalli chaired. It was a very good meeting with our bushfire officers there from all of the brigades. I think the only concern that they had, because they wanted to get this in place ASAP as soon as they could, I think the only question that was asked by them, and I haven't seen it in the report, is how long will it take for this to go through being gazetted, and then possibly having to go through the delegation up at Parliament House. That was the only thing that I had, but otherwise I'm very supportive of it.
Ms Terralink, do you have any idea about how long the gazetting will take and get it through the state government?
Through you, Mayor, we are hopeful that we will be able to get it gazetted in December.
Thank you. Speakers against? Speakers for? Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I wholeheartedly support the new local law. It's been just over a year since the last version was revised, so to speak, and I think it's good to see revisions coming up in quick time, so to speak, in respect to all of our local laws. I did ask a couple of questions at the briefing session last week. I apologise, Madam Mayor, for asking the same questions. I'm only doing that under your new ruling about questions because I don't think I've received answers. I checked my emails a few minutes ago and received answers. The first question was very clear, if you recall, Madam Mayor, perhaps directed to Dan, the CEO. It is the case, I assume, that all pre-existing established fire brigades are deemed to be established for the purpose of this local law rather than having to reapply. That is the case.
Thank you. I'll pass that on to Mr Sims.
Thank you, Mayor, and I do remember Councillor Baker asking that question at the briefing, which I understand the Exec Manager of Governance and Legal has sought advice, and Deb Terralink will provide that advice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Terralink.
Through you, Mayor, yes, the responses to Councillor Baker's question were included in the changes to report and public questions. So effectively the response is the general savings on repeal provisions in clause 37(1)(b) of the Interpretation Act 1984 apply, which provides as follows. Where a written law repeals an enactment, the repeal does not, unless the contrary intervention appears, affect the previous operation of the enactment repealed or any duly done or suffered under that enactment. The head of power for a local government to establish a bushfire brigade is pursuant to section 41 of the Bushfires Act 1954, which must be done in accordance with its relevant local law. The proposed local law acknowledges this power and then sets out the requirements on establishing a bushfire brigade. And as I confirmed at the meeting, the brigades are covered under the city's insurances.
And just a further one, I did ask a specific question regarding whether or not the brigades are incorporated entities, either deemed to be under statute or under the Associations Corporation Act. It may well be I did receive a response. I'm not sure, but I think it's very important to ensure that brigade members have their liability limited to, well, basically excluded, and that any liability that they may incur is attached to the brigade itself rather than themselves as an individual. That could be clarified. The issue of the Constitution was raised by Councillor Sangalli.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Mr Berkeley Hill will respond to your question.
Through you, Mayor.
Yeah, the position is that the Bushfire Brigades are not a separate legal entity. They are part of council, so they don't have a separate legal existence. They're not an incorporated association or any other kind of entity.
Thank you.
Speakers for? Speakers against? Councillor Sangali, do you want to speak to close debate? Okay, so therefore I move this item to be voted, and the voting is now open. Please cast your vote. And that is passed unanimously. I move to item CPO 71122, review of naming of cities assets policy. Can I have a mover for this item? Councillor Myers, can I have a seconder? Councillor Treby, Deputy Mayor Treby. Councillor Miles, would you like to speak to this item?
No, thank you, Mayor. The report pretty much dictates what we're asking.
And Deputy Treby, would you like to speak to it?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the report's straightforward and self-explanatory.
Good. Speakers for? Speakers against? I will now put this item to the vote, and the voting is now open. If you could cast your vote, please. And that is passed unanimously. I now move to corporate strategy and performance, business and finance, and I go to item CSO 11122, finance activity statement for the period ended the 30th of September 2022. Can I have a mover for that? Yes, thank you, Deputy Treby, and seconder, Councillor Savitten. Deputy Treby, would you like to speak to this item?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Savitten, would you like to? Okay, speakers for? Speakers against? I would like to put this to the vote now. The voting is now open. Could you please cast your vote? That is passed unanimously. I now move to strategic and business planning, item CSO 21122, quarter 4 2021-22 corporate performance report. Can I please have a mover for this? Deputy Treby, a seconder. Councillor Savitten, would you like to speak to this, Deputy Treby?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. The report is self-explanatory.
Thank you. And Councillor Savitten, would you like to speak to this?
Ditto.
Okay, speakers for, speakers yes, Councillor Wright.
I'm speaking against, if it's okay.
Oh, sorry. Well, you didn't wait until I said speaking against. Speaking against, Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. The only reason why I'm voting against this item is based on the information provided to us, which says that we've achieved most of our outcomes. Majority of the projects have been deferred, and there's quite a substantial amount of projects that have been deferred. So I'm quite unsatisfied with the performance of what's taken place over quarter 4, and I hope that this will be improved for the new quarter for the 22-23 year. Thank you.
I would like to give the Director of Corporate and Finance the opportunity to respond to this, because we have had COVID, and I also understand there has been supply chain issues, and I also understand it's really quite a miracle that we've got as much done as we can. So, Ms Jennings, would you like to respond to that comment by Councillor Wright, please?
Thank you, Mayor. This report is purely factual. It just reports through from our whole of the last financial year of our corporate business plan items, as well as our top capital items. As you can see, we've have 80% of our corporate business plan initiatives are either on target, monitoring or complete, which I think is a very high percentage. And our capital projects, the council has been well informed throughout the year, because we report monthly, every month, about the status of our top capital items and whether there's been any supply chain issues, etc. So this is just the culmination of the 12 months of all the reports that have gone through to council. Purely factual. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Jennings. Do I have a speaker for? Yes, Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to recognise the many constraints that we're facing in terms of capital project delivery, and to say how glad I am we didn't contribute to a further delay in regards to an item on the agenda tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Do I have a speaker against? Speaker for? Okay, because I have...
Could I do a point of order, Mayor, please? 8.23, I'd like the words that were just spoken by Councillor Rowe to be recorded in the minutes immediately after their use. Thank you.
That's fine. So I will now put it to the vote. Closing debate. Oh, sorry. Yes, we have closing debate.
Thank you. And just on the points raised by the Director, and it is a factual report, but I think it's also important to note that the performance for 21-22 is a vast improvement on the performance year on year for 2021. So I think it's a highly commendable report, and it actually demonstrates to our community that there's a high level of efficiency, notwithstanding the market conditions.
Thank you, Deputy Treby. And on that, the item will now be put to the vote, and voting is now open. And we have one against, and that is Councillor Wright. Everyone else supported the recommendation. We move on to item CSO 3-1122, warrant of payments for the period to the 30th of September. Can I have a mover, please? Deputy Treby, seconder Councillor Civic. Speakers for? Speakers against? I'd like to... yes, Councillor Baker.
Yes, I seek leave or permission from you to ask a question, or a couple of questions, please. I seek your permission.
Councillor Baker, we recommend that if you have questions about the warrants of payments which haven't changed, that you write an email and that the Director of Corporate Affairs will respond to it. And so I will give you permission this time because of standing orders, but please mind that the procedure and the policy is that you email these questions before to get the answers beforehand. Thank you.
I have done exactly and precisely that, and also there's no power under standing orders to direct questions to be in writing in advance of a council meeting. But anyway, that's for another day in another forum. These questions have been, I have asked these questions on notice to Noel Lynch. He's been quite busy, of course, and I appreciate that. The first question relates to expense item 9578. The payee is Australian Property Consultants. The sum is $3,850. It seems that that was their fee for conducting a market rent assessment of a caravan park ground lease. Did that fee relate to the caravan park known as the former Queen's Caravan Park, please? That's the question.
The CEO will respond to your question, Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Mayor. And I understand from the Director of Corporate Strategy and Performance that she has advised Councillor Baker and thanked him for providing his questions to her, and that she has unable to provide the responses at this time, but will in due course. And I presume after Councillor Baker has asked the remaining questions, we'll include the responses in the minutes.
Councillor Baker.
Second question. Yes, thanks, ma'am. Once again, written notice has been given to this question. Anyhow, I referred to expense item 9935, referred to on page 288 of the warrants of payments. The date of the payment is 29 September 2022. The payee or recipient was Ms. K. Donker. The sum was $3,150, and it reads reimbursement-parking costs. There's reference to some AusConnect association under that. Was that sum spent on parking costs, or were there other expenses as well? It just seems to be a very high fee for parking costs.
Councillor Baker, I'll just move that over to the CEO to respond to that question.
Thank you, Mayor. I understand from the previous response provided by the Director of Corporate Strategy Performance, she's been unable to identify the details yet, but will do so in due course and provide those responses in the minutes.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Sims.
There are other questions, but they're in writing. I'll just wait for them to follow the usual course. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Speakers for? Speakers against? And on, if there are no right of reply? And on that, the item will be put to the vote, and the voting is now open. Please cast your vote. And the item is passed unanimously. So we move on to CSO 4-1122, proposed lease to the Return Services League WA branch, incorporated for the shed and storage area at 935 to 937 Wanneroo Road Enterprise House. Can I have a mover for this item? Councillor Huntley, and a seconder, Councillor Civic.
Madam Mayor, I have a declaration to make.
You can do your declaration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wish to make a impartiality declaration. With regard to this item, I disclose that by virtue of the fact that I've been a member of the RSL for some 32 years, as a consequence of that, there may be a perception that my impartiality on the matter may be affected. I declare that I will consider this matter on its merits and vote accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Huntley, would you like to do your declaration?
I have an impartiality declaration with this item, CSO 4/11/22. I disclose that I am a member of the RSL, and as a consequence there may be a perception that my impartiality on the matter may be affected, and I declare that I will consider this matter on its merits and vote accordingly.
And are you happy to move it, Councillor Huntley, as well? Cool. Councillor Huntley, would you like to speak to the item, please?
Yeah, I'm absolutely extremely pleased that this lease is going to happen, because this little truck, which actually is of great value to the RSL and great value to the people who are actually trying to repair this vehicle. It's going to be a triumph, really, to get it under cover and to get it serviced and back in action. So very, very pleased. Thank you.
Councillor Civic, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I'm more than happy to support the RSL. They are very important to our community, and based on a peppercorn rent, they need somewhere to stay. This is an appropriate area for them, and we'll certainly keep them there for quite some time, and certainly led by Jack Lacroix, etc., and his committee. I'm really happy that the city has approved the lease to be decided tonight, and it'll give them a home for some time. So I'm pleased that this has come forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Civic. Do I have speakers for? Yes, Councillor Wright.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I would love to support this report, because the RSL is such a vital community organisation in our community. And when I first got elected to council, I took a visit to their museum, which was fantastic, which was also supported by the council. And to see and hear their project, Lizzie Restoration, was actually fantastic to see sort of how it came about. And Jack Lacroix and Sue Tuck and the team down there are so passionate about when this is all fixed to be able to march in future parades, and definitely showcase technology to the future generations that will visit this museum, and also show them what life was like during the war, and to be able to showcase that and show that this project was done by the volunteers at the Wanneroo RSL is a fantastic thing. So I commend this to the council.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Speakers against? Speakers for? Councillor Baker.
Thanks very much. Yes, the recommendation is overwhelming merit for obvious reasons. My guess is that the actual truck depicted is what's called a blitz, which was still in use, a blitz truck which was still in use in the late 70s, and had various uses, but to carry goods, etc., but also to carry troops that would ordinarily be two parallel rows of seats facing each other, just like a Land Cruiser troop carrier. Great old truck, very slow but reliable, etc. The other thing to note, of course, is that this lease will be for the benefit of the RSL sub-branch, but actually the lease itself will name the overarching entity, which is the WA RSL, which is the incorporated entity. The sub-branch is not separately incorporated, but of course the lease will be for the exclusive use, enjoyment and benefit. So, yes, a very good recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Speakers against? Speakers for? If there are no more speakers to the item, Ms Huntley, Councillor Huntley, would you like a right of reply?
No, Madam Mayor, I think it's all been said.
Okay, so the debate is now closed. I will now put the item to the vote, and the voting is now open. And that item is passed unanimously. We now move on to item 9, which is motions on notice. We have a motion on notice from Councillor Wright about the mayoral and deputy mayoral monthly engagement report. Do you have a seconder for this?
Yes, Councillor Baker.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I said I would second this motion.
Councillor Baker. Thank you. Councillor Wright, would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you, Mayor. The reason for introducing this report, I had the inspiration of speaking to the Mayor and councillors at the City of Gosnells, as well as a councillor from the City of Rockingham, councillors at the City of Stirling, and a few councillors at the City of Joondalup. And they were explaining to me some of the processes that they had in place for good governance and accountability. And I thought these were two vital things for local government to have going into this new era of what local government should be. And the inspiration from these elected members and how well this process worked was phenomenal in showing that the accountability and actually explaining the mayoral's role, you know, it's more than just presiding at council meetings. There's a lot that goes into it in terms of attending community events and representing at various meetings and travelling over east to represent the city. So I think this is a good move to focus on giving the public an opportunity to be able to ask questions about the roles of council and also the mayor, but also for us as councillors to be aware of what we're being represented at various events. And I think the only reason for including the Deputy Mayoral in this is obviously if there's any events to discharge from the Mayor, that would be good to know for us. And that just ensures that all of us are receiving the information, we're all receiving what we're being represented at, and we're also receiving the benefits of what attendances are at these events. And I think this is critical. Obviously, throughout tonight, we've seen, you know, why something like this is important to have and have those safeguards in place as the city goes through a phase of change. As you know, we have a mayoral election next year. We also have another half council election. I think as the city and the council goes through rapid change, it is critical that we have these safeguards in place, regardless of whoever the mayor or deputy mayor is. I think it's a vital thing as we move into the realm that the community expects and holds us accountable, and to ensure that they are receiving information about what the council is doing. And that was the reason of introducing this in a public forum. And the Mayor Lyons in Gosnells, you know, explained to me that obviously receiving this regular report, they put it on their city's website and community members can go on, view that PDF, see what events the mayor's attended on their behalf. And it also gives the councillors an opportunity to raise those questions and making sure that all councillors are included in these events, particularly in their own ward. You know, we are elected officials to our communities. We expect to make sure that communication is open and transparent with one another, and also ensure that as an elected member for our ward, that we are actually told of what's going on in our ward, particularly if it is of council business. So I commend this report and ask for support around the table, and I look forward to hearing the points that will be raised tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Baker, would you like to speak to this motion on notice?
I'll be brief. Believe it or not, currently the only way to access this information is to do an FOI under the State Records Act. Believe it or not, the Mayor's diary and the Deputy Mayor's diary, when he's deputising for the Mayor, those diaries, those paper records, and even the obligation to create a paper record are created by are required under the State Records Act provisions. The term record is very broadly defined in the interpretation section, very broadly defined. It in effect means anything upon which anything can be stored. It also makes it very clear that the city is to have a record-keeping plan, which I think the CEO will confirm we do have. We do have a record-keeping plan. I'm not sure when it was last updated. So in a nutshell, the Act itself actually traps, so to speak, or applies to existing records or obligations to make records, but also it compels in certain circumstances a record to be kept. In other words, you can't have, for example, a secret diary, etc., obviously. And once again, the gist of the, or thrust of the motion deals solely with the matters involving council business, involving the mayor or the deputy mayor when he's deputising for the mayor. So at present, all an elected member can do under the Act, arguably, or the State Records Act, is to seek an FOI. But you wonder how the hell it could be knocked back. The other way, of course, is to make an application, or at least write a request to the CEO under Section 5.92 of the Local Government Act 1995, asking for a copy of a record documentable thing. often requests that kind are rejected on the basis that whoever adjudicated upon that request is of the view that the individual elected member, the specific councillor, did not require the document requested to enable them to acquit their duties. And of course, that's happened to me a few times, that response, and I've said, well, hang on a minute, that's a matter for the elected member to determine, the councillor to determine, not to be adjudicated upon by a non-elected individual. It'd be akin to a director of a company asking the general manager for a copy of the, I don't know, the wages bill for the entire company in the last 12 months. The general manager, not being a director, can't say it's none of your business. Who do you think you are, a director or something? I mean, it's just ludicrous. But anyhow, but and also in any event, even if that is the case, and even if it's taken literally, it's quite easy to, if you like, devise an argument whereby the relevance of the document to the councillor can be established by virtue of the councillor giving notice of his intention or her intention to give notice of a motion concerning a particular class of documents for debate purposes, etc. Yeah. So in a nutshell, in my reading of the State Records Act, and the CEO might correct me, the Mayor's diary, as supplemented by the Deputy Mayor's diary when fulfilling the duties of the Mayor when she's unavailable, etc., that diary and those records, however described, are subject to, are caught by the definition of record in the Records Act, and they're subject to retention, etc., and they are FOIable under that Act, or if they're not, or if the FOI is unsuccessful, they can be accessed by a request under Section 5.92 of the Local Government Act 1995. In conclusion, I'll just simply put it very simply, in terms of good government, good governance, what price for transparency? We talk about open and accountable and responsible local government. That goes to the very heart of this motion. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Speakers for? Councillor Miles.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think the intent to what Councillor Wright is intending, I think has merit. When you look at the actual screenshot on page 304, it is just the date, meeting or function and purpose. I don't personally have a problem with that. I think it's as stated. I know of probably a dozen or more councils that do this in one shape or form or another. One, as indicated by Councillor Baker, to allow councillors to know how busy their mayor has or is being. It also indicates to the wider community, that there is a lot more to local government than what people honestly believe. And I think it's been said by councillors in the past that we probably don't indicate enough in a transparent way what we do as council, as councillors, mayors, deputy mayors' roles. So I think this is pretty inert. I don't see it being an issue. I would appreciate the mayor's diary is probably pretty much full up consistently. We are a full-time council. Our mayor is a full-time council role. We don't. We're just so much going on, even so that some of our administration staff obviously having to do stuff as well. So I'm supporting it on that basis. I've read the administration's comments. It is just a notation being placed, either on the website or in a monthly report that's put in the RAP or in some other place. I would like to see it come into place, councillors.
Speakers against. Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll preface my comments just to say that I think Councillor Wright passionately put forward this motion, but I didn't hear in his comments any follow-up on the administration concerns. That's the reason for myself opposing this motion on notice. First, the privacy concerns, that whether residents, groups and organisations need to consent to the publication of their identity in a council agenda and how this would be executed and enforced. The administration concerns, given that admin is not able to undertake the preparation of this report, whether it is the mayor or the deputy mayor's responsibility to prepare it and then have it tabled before council. And if that is the expectation, whether that's included in the mayor or deputy mayor's role and obligations under the Act, and who would have oversight over the actual delivery of that report. And then finally, the administration's comment about why it's just expected of the mayor and the deputy mayor, given that occasionally councillors will undertake roles and meetings, and they will also represent the mayor or the deputy mayor at events within their ward. So why this obligation is not coming for all councillors if the case is for full transparency.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Speakers for? Councillor Huntley.
Can I offer an alternative that we actually bring this back to forum? Because this is something that I think we all need to speak about rather than...
Councillor Huntley, that's a procedural motion,
Oh,
not
is
an
it
alternative.
Okay,
Yeah,
a procedural motion to go to forum on
Do
this?
you have a seconder for the procedural motion?
No? Go to forum.
Yeah, procedural motion.
Seconder of the substantive cannot do the second the procedural motion.
Beg your pardon.
So Councillor Miles is seconding the procedural motion. And so when would we bring this to? Would it be bringing this to a forum in sometime in 2023? Yes, that's Councillor Huntley nodded her head to that comment.
No, I think there's one coming up in 2 weeks' time. I'm not sure if there's any gaps in the agenda where this could be slotted in sideways.
The forum is totally booked up with items for it, so it has to be booked in sometime in 2023. Thank you. Okay, so the item will now be put to the vote, and voting is now open. The procedural motion is now lost, and the fours are Councillor Sangalli, Councillor Miles, Councillor Huntley, Councillor Wright. So we will now go to debating the motion on notice. Can I think I'm up to speakers against? Yes, Deputy Mayor Treby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I think there is reasonable intent in what's being proposed, but it's the very first dot point on page 301 that I really want to focus on a little bit more. The second dot point's also very interesting, fostering a better team environment. It's an interesting comment. But more transparent local government. And I'm actually for this. I think this is such a good idea. I think it needs to be extended towards every elected member and every diary. If it's to be adopted, everybody should be transparent. I never favour being half pregnant on transparency, which is what this motion proposes. It has a number of issues, however, that clearly haven't been thought through, and there are major issues. The first of which is the Privacy Act. We've heard very much about the Records Act, and on the basis of the Records Act and FOI, we should absolutely support this. It completely ignores the Privacy Act and other legislation which would impact. Completely ignores it. It completely ignores the fact that the mayor, on occasion, will have, and the deputy mayor and councillors, on occasion, will have confidential discussions with residents or organisation, well, residents in particular, who are deeply fearful for reprisal should their confidentiality or their details be exposed. And over the years, we've had several of those circumstances. So for that exposure, we cannot provide any level of confidentiality to any of the residents who seek to come and talk to us about issues they have in the community, and they are broad. If it's open to all councillors, and I think it should be, What would a circumstance be when a councillor has to put down the date and the address and the name of a person who wishes to complain about someone who is in their neighbourhood, someone who is taking on illegal activities, somebody, councillor, that's where we're going with this, somebody, and that's got to be provided.
Point of clarification on the motion is not stating any address or anything like that of that sort.
Exactly.
Sorry,
exactly.
I don't accede to that being provided. He will have to wait till the end of my debate. It is absolutely that. There is, if it's going to be open, and it needs to be open for this to work, let's be fair, it can't be selective. We can't say, oh, we'll put all of these things in, but not all of the other things. It would need to be open. So if there's anything where, I don't know, somebody has, and Councillor Herridge has some fantastic people who live in Lansdale, they lodge complaints, or the complaints are lodged against them. They also come into police attention for some illegal bikie activities. All of a sudden, there is no level of confidence that someone can raise with the council or a council law. So if it's going to be open, let's be open. Let's make sure everyone's diary is open, for it to be workable, everything must be down. Absolutely everything. It cannot be selective. So these are some of the issues that I've got on, and that's just on confidentiality. There is no head of power to compel this, none whatsoever. Administration have raised so much. Administration have said they are not in a position to write reports because there is no head of power to compel this or to allow administration to do that work. Who would be the final arbiter on the quality and veracity of the information? Who's going to check the information? Is it accurate? And again, these are some of the poorly thought through issues that I've got in terms of this report. Who checks the veracity of the information? Who checks that? Who checks that everything is written down? And I wouldn't support this unless it was all councillors.
Deputy Treby, we have come to time. Would you like some more time?
I would, Madam Mayor.
Okay, can I, we'll go to a vote for an extension of time. Do you second that, Councillor Rowe? Thank you. We will go to a vote for that, and the voting is now. We're just opening the voting to extend the time. That's a procedural motion for Deputy Treby to talk a bit longer. We're ready to vote now. Carried unanimously. Deputy Treby, you can continue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, councillors. It then gets me through to commercial in confidence conversations. Many occasions arise where the Mayor and the CEO are asked to meet with proponents who are looking to do business in the city of Wanneroo. And that has happened on many occasions. And there are many proponents with large international organisations who will seek to set up businesses in the city of Wanneroo. And those discussions are commercial in confidence. They would need to be included. Or is it suspected that we would need to have a special category where they wouldn't be included? Circumstances where this has happened in the past. I think Councillor Civic will remember in the very early days of this building being constructed, we had an approach from a national airline carrier to build a telehelp room in this very building. That got out. And guess what? They went across the road. So commercial in confidence hasn't been conceived in this. It hasn't been thought through. There are other, we're looking at major international, national and international organisations seeking to do business in Nirruba, seeking to do and build major retail and commercial hubs in Wanneroo. They would need to be included. Or is it suggested we're half transparent on this? No, it's either fully transparent, there's no head of power, and who's the ultimate arbiter? Is it the minister under the Crown, under the state constitution? That's where it would go, but he's got no head of power. So this is the issue that I've got with this. The principle's not bad, but it's not going far enough, and it hasn't been well thought through. There is absolutely no way for the security and confidentiality of many of the meetings that we hold, and I know for a fact that the Mayor will hold some of these meetings, and confidentiality must be maintained because people's security, both personal and commercial, need to be maintained in order for those organisations, businesses or individuals to have faith and confidence that they can talk and have some confidence that their concerns can be kept reasonably confidential. So there's absolutely no way in its current form that I could support it, unless all councillors are involved, but potentially we might have to chat about that at a forum.
Thank you, Deputy Treasurer. Speakers for?
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, Councillor
My
Baker.
recollection is that this agenda item wasn't raised at the briefing session. If I may, just to justify my question being asked.
This agenda item, I don't think, went to a briefing
No,
session.
it read notice of motion, but we didn't receive the actual motion, I think. But just a question to the CEO. CEO, as you'd be aware, the council has a councillor or elected member allowances and expenses policy. Under the terms of that, various expense claims can be made. One such expense claim is in relation to motor vehicle expenses. The claim form requires the date of, the name of the motor vehicle, the make of the motor vehicle, the model, registration, size of engine. It requires particulars in terms of the date of travel, the purpose of travel, and the number of kilometres travelled. Now, that information, is that a confidential travel expense claim form? Can a member of the public get that, or is that FOI-able, please?
Thank you, Councillor Baker.
Because
Mr. Sims?
that form, as Councillor Treby said...
Councillor Baker, I've passed your question on to the CEO. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Councillor Baker summarised the purpose of the form correctly in alignment with the policy. I guess a request for that form would have to be considered based on who and what and the circumstances for that request, and the decision would be made.
Thank you, Mr. Sims.
Thank you, Second question, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Baker.
Mr. CEO, are you aware as to whether our Code of Conduct contains provisions dealing with confidentiality? And do they only apply to some transactions or some matters, or do they apply to all council business, particularly in circumstances where the business or, for example, the document is stated or declared to be confidential, please?
Mr. Sims.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the Code of Conduct read in conjunction with the Local Government Act in terms of access to information, use of information and confidentiality of information would answer that question.
And last question, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Baker.
Yes, to the CEO once again. Mr. CEO, are you aware of any provision in the Local Government Act, any of its, or any provision in any of its six sets of regulations, or any statute law in this state or nationally, which, well, perhaps not nationally, that's going a bit too far, which if you like, allows elected members in local government to have secrets from other elected members in respect of council business, and affairs. Is that the case? Or is it a case where transparency is certainly sought? Thank you.
Mr. Sims.
Thank you, Mayor. It's very difficult for me on the spot to answer a question relating to any legislation nationally, state, or any hypothetical circumstance that might relate to that broad selection of legislation. I would have to take that on notice and spend considerable time reflecting on that broad reference to legislation and that if any example question.
And a supplementary in view of what the CEO has just answered, please, Madam Mayor.
Yes,
thanks. I would have thrashed this out of the briefing session. Yes, thank you. Once again, under our Code of Conduct, I think it's its elected members are strongly urged not to meet with developers without there being a director, a departmental director or a senior manager of that director's department present. Is that is the case, correct?
Mr Sims.
Thank you, Mayor. I prefer to not be fettered in my answer, but just provide a wholesome answer to that question. And my answer would be the standing orders do exactly provide a clause that Councillor Baker is referring to in regards to elected members' interactions with proponents.
So, and also as such, there is no such thing as a secret meeting between, in terms of the applicable case, a deputy mayor or mayor with a developer or any person in respect of council business.
Point of clarification.
Yes, Deputy Truby.
The word secret meeting was introduced by Councillor Baker with reference to a point I was making in terms of proponents that are seeking to do business in the city of Wanneroo. At no time did I suggest there was any secret meeting, and consistent with a point that Councillor Wright has raised previously, can I ask that those very words be reflected in the minutes of this meeting? And my understanding is, and I certainly
objection.
haven't
Point of order, Madam
I haven't seen. I have
Councillor
not seen.
Baker, please do not interrupt. Deputy, I am ruling. Please do not interrupt. Deputy Truby is speaking. Then I will give you the ability to speak. Please wait until he is finished. Thank you.
I have not seen, nor been part of, nor heard any circumstance where major organisations meet with the city unless there is, and if it's the mayor, and this is going back to former mayors, unless there were senior officers of the administration in presence each and every occasion. That has always been the case.
Thank you, Deputy Truby. Councillor Baker, would you like to speak?
Yes, the standing orders do not recognise the creature known as seeking clarification. It's either point of order or isn't. Anyhow, that's irrelevant. It's just in standing orders. It's irrelevant. But look, I'm not talking about, in this case, the elected members meeting with developers. If the mayor has a meeting with a developer and the CEO is present, and if that meeting is confidential and the mayor cannot discuss whether or not as a fact that meeting occurred, the date, time and venue and the subject matter at the meeting, that by any definition is a secret meeting, by any definition. You call it confidential, that's correct. It's a confidential secret meeting. It's as simple as that. That's why I used the word secret earlier. It's very similar to the term confidential, but that's a classic instance of a confidential meeting, and they may well be held from time to time. I don't know. I don't know if they're justifiable in the circumstances, maybe. But that would be an example of a secret meeting.
Councillor Baker, I think your comment has been made quite clear.
But there's a litany of famous secret meetings that have been held between elected members throughout Australia over the years.
Councillor Baker, you've spoken to the motion, you've asked a lot of questions, you're making a statement, and I think I've given you a lot of leniency to make a second statement.
I apologise.
Okay, Councillor Wright, would you like to...
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to speak for a second time under 5.8.
Is this your
1.
right of reply?
No, this is, it says only the mover of a motion or amendment may speak twice on the same motion or same amendment. I would like to exercise my second speak to this motion, please.
Madam Mayor, with that is Councillor Wright closing debate.
Yes, that's normally when you speak the second it's closing debate.
But that's not what 5.81 says. It just says only the mover, that is standing orders. It says only the mover of a motion or amendment may speak twice on the same motion. It doesn't clarify a right of reply. I'd like to ask the Mayor who's presiding over the meeting.
Okay, I preside that if you speak to it now, we will close debate and move the motion unless you want it to be debated further. And you have the right of reply at the end of the debate.
Can I raise some points that if Deputy Mayor Truby would like to put an amendment up, I'm more than happy to address his points around the Privacy Act. I'm happy for this to be in the Wanneroo RAP. I'm very happy for this to include all councillors because I'm happy to share my calendar with anyone around this table or a member of the public. I'm happy for this about commercial things to be included in that as well because it's about ethical governance. ethics is not bound by the law, it is just good principle. The Act and law is all about things that we require a minimum level to do.
This is, Councillor Wright, this is close to being an alternative rather than the motion on notice. Motion on notice speaks specifically to the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor. What you're talking about is an alternative to include all councillors, and in doing that we need to be able to discuss that and work out a format for this to move forward. We're at this point in time, I think we're just speaking to the motion on notice, or we have to do an alternative.
Well, in this case then, which according to my motion, the original ones, I'm happy for this to be changed as an amendment. Request the Mayor and Deputy Mayor to provide this report in the Wanneroo RAP rather than a council meeting.
You can't move an amendment because you're moving.
I said I'm happy for any council member to move that, and I'd be happy to accept that as part of my motion. Thank you.
Okay. So the item is put there if anyone would like to move the amendment.
Madam Mayor, I can't, Madam Mayor, but this issue has arisen before. We've just simply made the amendment on the hop. No challenges, no reference to standings. It happens all the time.
Yes, but someone has to move the amendment. You've moved the substantive motion on notice. Someone has to move the amendment and someone has to second it.
But that would therefore be someone who would be opposed to elected members being included within the scope of what's...
No, who would support elected members being used in the scope. But Councillor Wright and you, Councillor Baker, have moved the substantive motion on notice. There is an amendment suggested that has been suggested, and one of the councillors need to move that amendment, another one needs to second it, and if no one moves it, no one seconds it, then the amendment falls and we vote for the substantive motion on notice.
Question.
Yes, Councillor Huntley.
In my position at the moment, I have meetings regarding wildlife. At that point, there is no way I can disclose where those wildlife are or where they're going to go or where I have been, because obviously wildlife gets shot. We create issues, we create problems with people coming and trying to steal animals. So there are issues with that. If I was to second this with Councillor Wright, would that mean that I would have to disclose those areas?
Mr Sims, would you like to ask the
Was that a question for me?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just perhaps to just clarify Councillor Huntley's comment that's just been made, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I would envisage that the areas that you work in the context of wildlife protection is not related to your role as an elected member, and therefore I suspect, but it is probably more to Councillor Wright, who is the owner of the motion, to clarify, but I would imagine the intent is to capture roles performed, and I think that roles you've just explained are not connected to your role on council, because that's not necessarily council business.
Can I just ask that again? So I have to deal, obviously, if animals are being moved from one site to another, sometimes I'm having to deal with developers of a particular council, or even where animals are going to go onto areas that may be owned by developers. So ultimately, it does cross the lines, for having to disclose.
So just moving back to, we have an amendment that Councillor Wright wants someone to move and someone to second, and I'm going to ask twice if I have a mover for that amendment. Councillor Miles, do I have a seconder for that amendment? Do I have a seconder for that amendment? As I have no seconder, that amendment has fallen, so we will go to the substantive motion on notice. Would you like to close debate, Councillor Wright?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. In regards to the points raised, I'm more than happy and open to the idea. Obviously, councillors have chose not to do that, so obviously full and open transparency was not an option, which I was very fully supportive of. And it goes back to the points around ethical governance. And not everything we do has to be bound by an act or legislation, but it's actually going above that as good governance. And that's where we differ between other organisations, and that relates to culture. And culture relates to the performance of the local government as well as our role around compliance. And I think that is where we should be different as a local government, around doing things differently. And I think around that code around ethical governance is our role as leaders of the community to be able to have that transparency and trust. And I don't think we have that around this table. And quite clearly around that.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. Under the same principle that Councillor...
I withdraw the statement.
No, I want that on the record.
I withdraw the statement.
Can we put that on the record, please?
I withdraw the statement.
The statement's been withdrawn, Madam Mayor, and there'll be a transcript.
There's nothing to record. I withdraw the remarks. In regards to this motion, and obviously the points that the Deputy Mayor have raised are very valid around the Privacy Act, and I'd be very happy to remove that component from the motion around particular people that you meet. But I think events and anything that is represented on behalf of council, and Councillor Huntley's points around private things that you do outside of your council role, that's not what this motion is about. It is about the events that we attend on behalf of council, or the Mayor and Deputy Mayor attend on behalf of council, and that relate to our roles that we discharge under the Local Government Act. It's not who you catch up with at the weekend at a cafe. It's not, any of those sort of matters. It is about what we do as a role as a councillor, as a deputy mayor or a mayor under the Local Government Act around attending functions on behalf of council or meeting with particular groups of interest, which then may come in and ask questions or promote things on Facebook that the council was unaware of. That I ask my councillors to support this for ethical transparency and accountability. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. The item will now be put to the vote, and voting is now open. Cast your vote, please. Okay, the item is lost. The supporters of the motion on notice is Councillor Baker, Councillor Miles and Councillor Wright.
Madam Mayor, I ask that the votes be recorded for the purpose of the minutes, please.
Yes, they are recorded. Thank you. Okay, moving on, we have no items of urgent business, but we have a confidential item. And so we're going to discuss item CRO 11022 under the items of the Local Government Act 1995, section 5.23 in brackets 2. Can I have someone to move closing to the doors to go into confidential? Councillor Saviden, and seconder Deputy Mayor Treby. And it is 9:14.
Just waiting for that on here to come off.
Can we cast a vote to go into confidential? Are we all in agreement? Yes? No, cast the vote. Everyone's in agreement. Thank you. agreed to support the revised TPRC timetable for member divestment and withdrawal as stated on the report. And that was carried unanimously. Item 12, date of the next meeting. The next council members briefing session has been scheduled for 6 p.m. on Tuesday the 29th of November to be held at Council Chamber, Civic Centre, 23 Dundebar Road, Wanneroo, and closure is at 9:28. Thank you, councillors.